Okay, we'll call the work session to order. We'll welcome all the city council members, except for we'll excuse council member Jake Lake, who's traveling. We'll turn the time over to Logan.
Awesome. Thank you. So today, just to start off, so we've seen, obviously there's an uptick in the trail usage, but then one thing specifically that has come up recently is when we opened up the gates, that's where all of our trail signs and rules and etiquette, they were on the gates, we opened the gates, now you can't read them. So that was one thing that we needed to change. And then obviously we've had some code change. We did that ordinance update a couple months ago, so we've got some new language that will reflect that. And then we also have the branding that was changed at the same time. So now that we've kind of got everything officially done, we're going to update the signage, but then just kind of wanted to go over some concerns and some safety stuff that we'll also be doing at the same time that we're going to be doing the signage on the trail. So also mile markers, the trail crossing ahead, and you'll see I have some pictures in here of, things. One thing I do want to point out, as I went out this morning to just validate before I actually said, every crossing but one had the trail crossing ahead already there, and every intersection had the stop signs on the trail side. So there's already good things in place that if people adhere to those are good safety measures, not only for pedestrians, but also vehicle traffic. So there already are things in place that I think are good and want to be known, but obviously I think there's some things we'll discuss today that we can make better as well. So these will be the new trail signs that we'll put on there. This will be reflective of the new ordinance change that we put in there. The QR code down at the bottom, we'll scan them to the citizen reporter. So that way, if anything that comes up, that will be able to come to us and then we can, get it addressed. Yes?
Please refresh my memory on the recent ordinance change that we voted on.
Mm-hmm. Which section or which part? So, the biggest ones are the motorized vehicles, the e-bikes. That's going to be the biggest one, and the classification of what those are. We did have on the exceed 8 feet for the leash for pets. So that one is an updated one. Before it just said pets on leash. There wasn't specific verbiage on a length, so that one is from that. And then everything else, the no commercial activities, that was part of it. And then the other ones are just repeats from the ordinance. So, okay, any questions on the signage? And I can send these out afterwards, so I know it gets a little hard to read when we're up there. Okay, so what I want to do is just go through starting at 1600 North and then every trail crossing that we have going south from there. One thing is we're also going to be adding a center stripe on the trail to help with traffic. So we'll get that going right away. We'll start at Bartholomew right after the bridge, and then that'll go all the way up into Harmony Ridge Parkway, and any asphalt trail from that. So on 1600 North here, you can see these are the trail crossing signs that we have up. We've obviously got the crosswalk, and then there is the stop sign on this side, and then this one on the left is just a smidge out of the frame. But what we're proposing is to put no parking and red curb adjacent to the intersections, just to help with those line of sight. And so that's what we'll be doing on 1600. Between 30 and 50 feet, depending on the intersection. 1200 North. So again, we've got the stop sign. Just on the other side is the trail crossing. This one has been brought up because of this fence, the line of sight there. This is one where we have looked at maybe doing a trail crossing ahead painted in the road. Been working with Rob. And Rob, you can touch on a little bit more from the engineer standpoint, but we want to use those sparingly. We don't want to just put those down on every crossing and make an assumption that that's the best thing to do it. It's definitely a more calculated approach of where we want to put that. But I think with the updated signage, we already have the stop signs there. I think that those will be good good things to help with the safety. 400 north, oh, and excuse me, the red curb would be on both sides, both east and west side, about 50 feet. Correct. Yep.
Is that fence in violation at all because there was a curb or because it's a not vehicle actual road?
I don't, it might be a better, and I don't, Rob, I don't know. I think we had that question and we determined that it was within when it should be. Sean, I don't know, do you know, is that fence from a setback?
Yeah. Plus the setbacks from the trail is far enough back.
Does that
Okay.
create any implications to modifying code to protect line of sight in the future on the trail that we should say?
You could, but again, that's the purpose of the stop sign. I think that's,
Yeah.
In theory, I hope they would do that.
yeah.
Hey, just remember, we're recording this, so if you can speak into the mic so they can pick up on it.
Okay, 400 north, same thing, you can see our trail crossing, got the crosswalk, and then we'll have red curb and posted signage. This one, I believe, was 30 feet on each side of the trail. This one's Maple Street, same thing, see our signage, we've got the crosswalk, we've got stop signs on both sides, and then this one will be red. This was, just happened to be a picture that I took. You know, this car is right where, as people are coming up eastbound, is right in where line of sight would be, and so that's where it would be posted and painted red curb to help with that. 400 south up in the Eagle Rock neighborhood, same thing, red curb on both sides, and then we've got the signage in place for the trail crossing and the stop signs. 1200 east, so this is another one that we've had some concerns and some questions from some residents. This one is one that we are proposing in the road to stripe a trail crossing ahead in the road painted, and then we also have the trail crossing signs. This is also one that we've looked at for the flashing beacon pedestrian crossing. Again, they do have to initiate that and click it. It doesn't just automatically do that. So there is that step, you know, that pedestrians would have to do. But I think with the added painting in the road and the stop signs and trail crossing we already have, I think that'll be a good, or at least a good step in the right direction.
And that one's because of the blind corner, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, 1200 east is got that tricky turn coming, you know, if you're heading northbound. Well, really both of them are
Yeah.
tricky. 1600 south, so we red curb and post on both sides. This is one that Rob and I talked about being able to add some parking here on this bulb out. We could add 11 diagonal parking or 6 perpendicular parking adjacent to the curb here. So we'll kind of work together on which one is best and then get that one striped to help. I think that one will also help just because it is tight coming down as it necks back in on 1600 north, or 1600 south. So I think having some actual defined parking right there will help, you know, push people to park up there. South Main, red curb and post on both sides. We do have the 4 parking stalls and a 1 ADA already on South Main, and then just adding that additional red curb and the no parking right there to help with that line of sight. And then again, you can see we've got our trail crossing signs with stop signs installed. Hidden Canyon, same on that one, just we'll post red curb. We've got the 2 signs in place. And then lastly, on Harmony Ridge Parkway, we'll do the same thing. So that is the proposal as far as signage. We'll do the center stripe. We'll add the new trail signs along the route. Still determining on how many right now, or again, when we had opened the gates, they were on every single gate. I don't know as if that's completely necessary. We may go every other intersection, but we'll still put plenty out and in a very visible site. Any questions on the Parkway Trail / just the paved trails?
Great improvements.
Okay. So on the Maple Hills trailhead, so this one is the newest trail that was built last fall. We did, and we'll talk a little bit in council, we are using RAP tax funding to help with the signage on the trail, but just wanted to show what that would look like. So at the base of the trail, these are our design precedents that we can use at the trailhead. The one on the left is what we would probably use in this, for this trail, as it's not a major trailhead, but still, warrants, we want to make sure we have the map there with the trail rules, and then any other interpretive signage that we may want to add, we'll be able to have that. And then this, the one on the right, is the trail alignment that was built. So that would be placed on the trail to just show as a wayfinding of what it is. And then these are the trail markers that would be along the trail for mileage, and then also for typology of the trail, and then also orienting where people are along the trail. So as you get to the east side where the trail was completed, that's where we'll have the arrows that are kind of pointing each direction. If you go south, it actually does connect in with the trail that goes up Whiting Campground already. And so that's what that sign, it'll be really tall so people can see it as they're coming up that hill and be able to see where, each direction they're able to go on it. So, and then similar to the trail or the Parkway Trail signage, this would be the signage for the multi-use trails. I will note that this would have the RAP tax symbol on it, that's what it would be used or purchased from. But this one has a little bit more specific language for the multi-use trails, where it has the no motorized vehicles, including e-bikes. So especially on this trail, there's no e-bikes allowed. This one will be a hiking-only trail.
Are you receptive to feedback about phrasing on these?
Sure.
When you send it out, I'll have some, like, the second bullet, motorized vehicles, including e-bikes, are prohibited unless authorized. I don't, there's an interpretation
Sure.
you've got there, so
Yeah.
just pending, I'll have some comments.
Yeah, I can definitely send it out, and yeah, for any of you, feel free to
You
send
mentioned,
that.
you mentioned that no bikes are allowed either.
On which one?
On that trail?
Yes.
Do we
Yeah.
need to put a no bike sign? It mentions motorized vehicles, but
Yeah, we probably should just put as far as just any bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Wait, clarify that, no bikes at all
Yeah,
On
this
that-
one's just
This particular
hiking,
trail.
on this particular trail?
just on this trail.
Oh, on this trail, got
Yes.
it, got it, got
So
it.
you might have
Yeah.
to change the header on this. I mean, you're going to make modifications to this one anyway, but
Yeah.
because it says Mapleton City Trail.
Yeah, so this
rules.
Mapleton City, or Maple Hills Trail.
Got it, there you go.
Yeah, just so it's specific to this one. Okay, that's, and just as a heads up, as we build out the bike park and any other trails, this will be the design precedents that we'll use. That way, everything is matching. As we connect trails, we'll update the maps, we'll enlarge them to show those other connections that are coming, just so that the wayfinding is consistent, along the whole trails. So, any other questions or thoughts?
All good.
Awesome.
up at the top of that trail, do you need to put another sign stating that it's a pedestrian-only trail and no bikes? Because if they're coming from one of the other trails, you don't want them to, ride their bike on this trail, right?
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. Just I would, just based on the topography coming in this way, I don't think there would.
Okay.
Logic would say somebody wouldn't be on a bike, but I mean, some people do things that they shouldn't. So it might, yeah, we could definitely look at that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I got a quick one, just while I'm thinking about it. Let's coordinate on the QR code, because I'm just thinking about, like, we just had to update the citizen reporter, and even just as we're changing up our website, we'll need to coordinate with Seth and make sure that any changes with that we're keeping a consistent, what the web page is called, to where even if Esri changes the background to where we've got to change what the app does, that there's a website that is consistently they're being taken to where the citizen report is. So
Got
yeah,
it.
let's
Yeah.
coordinate with Seth
Good.
on that.
You got a metal sticker you can slap over the one
For
that
sure.
doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Oh, I didn't think
that's
about
all we had. Thank you.
Rad. It's like we're growing up.
Super. That was it. Awesome. Thanks, Logan. That's it for our work session. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll have a 9-minute break before city council starts. All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Sean, would you grab that thing at some point, the list? Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. We've got a full agenda. We'll recognize that we have almost all of the council present tonight, with the exception of, we'll excuse Councilmember Lake as he is traveling. We'll begin the meeting with a prayer and a pledge, and I will offer the prayer, and Councilmember Bott will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Heavenly Father, we come to Thee at the beginning of this meeting. We're grateful for the many blessings we enjoy. We're grateful for the opportunity we've had to celebrate and recognize and remember our freedoms that we have in this country, and to celebrate the birth of this nation. We're grateful for the opportunity to live here in Mapleton and to rub shoulders with one another. We're grateful for the environment that it is and the wonderful people that live here. We pray that will guide and direct us tonight in this meeting to discuss the agenda items and make decisions that will best have the best outcome for this city. We pray for these things now in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise and recite the pledge with me.
Okay, so for those of you who are following the agenda, we're going to make a little bit of a switch. We're going to do the presentation items first before the public forum. So we will start with the Pioneer Day Essay Contest winners. And as you guys are making your way up, I want to kind of explain the procedure for doing ceremonial items. What we'll do is we'll carry out the ceremonial item, and then those involved in the ceremony, we invite you to come up to the front of the dais here on the floor, and then the council and myself will stand and pose for some pictures. And then all of those who are involved in the ceremonial item, will invite you to come around to this side and come up the ramp, and then come through, and all of the council will shake your hands and exit the dais on that side. And then you can either head straight out of the meeting if you don't want to be here the rest of the meeting, or we'll invite you to take your seats. So that's kind of how we'll handle each of these 3 ceremonial items. We'll turn the time over to Logan.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So this one's a fun one. This is a brand new thing that we did this year. And we started it in conjunction with the America 250, but honestly, reading through them, it's going to be something we will do every year. So this year's theme was reflecting on 250 years of American history and the celebration of 125 years of Mapleton City. What is your American story, or a unique community story that illustrates the power of unity and collective growth? What lessons from the past can help us flourish in the future? And so with that, I'd like to present our winners tonight. I'd like to start with Evelyn, as she has some soccer duties to attend to. So I'd invite Evelyn to come up to the front.
I was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. There are lots of beaches and mountains there and lots of nice people. When I was 3 years old, we moved to upstate New York, where there were lots of waterfalls. And then 4 years ago, when I was 6 years old, I moved here to Mapleton. Mapleton was named after all the maple trees. In upstate New York, there were lots of maple trees too. And all of these maple trees connect with their roots and are dense in whatever area they grow. Their roots can help each other grow healthier. This is how our community can be in certain ways. Like if someone were to be having a rough time, then our community can reach out and help them. If we can all manage to help each other in our community, then our whole community can grow and be stronger together. People in communities can share things in common. That also goes for different communities, like how I used to live in New York and moved to Mapleton. Mapleton was way different for me because I was more used to my old community, but the two communities still had things in common. Like both of the communities had maple trees, but both places had lots of differences too. This is like people. We are all different, but all live in the same community, wanting to be friends and be unified. The definition of a community is a group of people who live, work, or share something together and support one another. And a community isn't just where you live. It can also be your neighborhood, your school, a team or group, and sometimes even people that you share the same interests as you. There are lots of ways to get stronger as a community. We can smile and wave at each other or invite someone to come to an activity like Pioneer Day. Maple trees start from seeds, then they grow into big, beautiful trees. Just like our community, we all come from different places and backgrounds. Then together we make a community. One of my favorite community events is Mapleton's Lights On Festival. This event has lots of community participants, and they all help get the lights set up, make and serve hot chocolate, and also help make s'mores bags and hand them out to people so that they could roast s'mores. And all of these participants' main goal is to make the community bond and come together as a community. I'm grateful to live in Mapleton and I love how our community has so much fun and many fun events, and we can each do our part to make our community stronger.
Wonderful. That was great. Evelyn, come back around the front for the award.
We have Evelyn's family.
Yeah,
Want to come up?
parents and family, if you want to come up for the photo.
Evelyn, do you want to volunteer with our city to be one of our top cheerleaders? We could put you to work. It's a beautiful essay.
One, two, three. Perfect. Thank you.
We're in good hands if Evelyn stays in Mapleton, that's for sure.
That was awesome. I just love the simplicity of just the smile. You know, there could have been so many different things, but yet it starts with just a smile, so that was awesome. Okay, next I'd like to invite up Jody Allen. She was our adult essay winner, and we'll invite her up here. Can I leave this right here, Camille? Or do we-
Thank you for having me. This is a piece of my story, my American story in Mapleton. There's something sacred about living in a home that has stood for more than a century. My beautiful little home in Mapleton was built in 1892, just a few years before Utah became a state, and long before Mapleton would become the city it is today. When I walk across its worn floors or pause in the quiet of its rooms, I often wonder about the hands that built it, who they were, what they sacrificed, what they hoped this place might be. Those early builders were pioneers in every sense of the word. They worked with what they had. They leaned on one another and built not just homes, but a community. They likely never imagined the generations that would follow or the lives that would unfold within these walls. And yet, because of their effort, I get to live here today. That is the beginning of my American story. But the heart of my story began much later when I purchased my home in 2006. At the time, it became more than just a house. It became a place of stability, a place of safety, and of new beginnings. As a single mother, I raised my 2 children within these walls. The 3 of us found ourselves learning, growing, and navigating life together. There were challenges, of course, and moments that felt very heavy. But one thing I have come to understand clearly is this: I was never truly doing it alone. Because in Mapleton, I was surrounded by a village. Friends, neighbors, and members of this community stepped in again and again. My village offered support, encouragement, acts of kindness, and love, not just to me, but to my children. They showed up in quiet and meaningful ways. They celebrated milestones, helped carry burdens, and became part of not only our story, but my family, my chosen family. And many of them are here tonight, still supporting me and lifting me. This community helped raise my children. Today, as I look at my children, now grown into capable, successful adults, raising families of their own, I see not only the result of hard work and perseverance, but the result of something much greater: unity, collective care, and a shared investment in one another. That is what Mapleton has been to me. That is what America, at its best, can be. When I reflect on 250 years of American history, I don't just think of well-known moments we read about in textbooks. I think of small, simple stories like mine and countless others where progress is built quietly through people who choose to show up for each other. The same spirit that carried pioneers across mountains and deserts still exists today. It looks different now, but it is no less real. It looks like a neighbor checking in, a friend offering help, a community that gathers around a family and says, "You're not alone. You're loved." That spirit shaped my life. And now in this different season of my life with children grown, I found myself in a quieter home. And in that quiet, I found myself searching for a new purpose along with a way to give back to my community that has shared so much with me. It had led me to build something of my own, and the idea for a small, home-based bakery began to take shape. What started as a simple love for baking grew into something more, a way to stay busy, to create, and most importantly, to give back to my community that I love so much. Because how do you think a community that helped raise your children? For me, the answer came in small but meaningful ways: a loaf of bread, a box of cookies, a warm cinnamon roll shared with someone who might need it. The bakery has become more than a business. It has become a reflection of gratitude. And from that gratitude came the idea of the sweet sharing shelf. A simple offering of treats meant not for sale, but for giving. A place where someone can take something sweet and pass it along to another person who could use a moment of kindness. No expectations, no transactions, just connection. In many ways, it mirrors the very thing that sustained me all those years. The pioneers who built this town didn't do it alone either. They relied on each other. They shared what they had. They understood that true strength comes from unity, not isolation. That is the lesson they left for us. It is the lesson that can help us flourish in the future. In a world that often feels divided or rushed, we have the opportunity to return to something simple and powerful: community. To remember that small acts matter, that showing up matters, that building something together, whether it's a town, a family, or even a small bakery, creates a foundation that lasts. Mapleton's 125-year story is not just about growth in size, but growth in connection. It is about people choosing again and again to invest in one another. As I continue to build this little cottage bakery, flour in my hands, hope in my heart, I see it as my way of carrying that story forward. What we build today matters. The kindness that we give, the efforts we make, The ways we choose to come together. Long after we are gone, those things remain. Just like the hands that built my home in 1892, hands that I will never know, but whose work still holds me, still shelters me, and still shapes my life. I often wonder if they knew, if they understood what they were building would carry forward into someone else's story more than a century later. And it makes me think, maybe that's what we are doing now. Quietly building something that will outlast us. A community, a legacy, a life filled with small acts of love and kindness. That is my American story, and I hope in some small way it becomes part of someone else's American story.
That was great, Jody. Yeah, Jody, if you and your family will come up after the award for photos.
There we go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
We just keep it coming. It's good stuff. I'd like to invite Gary and his wife up, and then Hallie, come up here. So I think one of the great things that we can do is, as we just listened to in those essays, is we get to find those people that, emulate and are those things in our community. And so this year, we're extremely grateful to have Gary and his wife be our Grand Marshals. I wanted to tell just a quick story that just happened even yesterday on just one of the small reasons why. So they actually help us with Sunset in the Park program, which I'll turn over to Gary here in a minute to talk a little bit about. But his wife Sally said, "Hey, I hope we're not doing too much as part of it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You guys are doing exactly what we want, which is that volunteerism." So the fact that she thought she was doing too much just emulates both of them, and we're grateful for both of them and what they bring to this community. And so with that, introduce yourself.
I'm Hallie. I'm the rec coordinator for Mapleton, but also I'm help running the parade this year. So a fun part of being the Grand Marshals is you get to be in the parade. And I hear you have excited grandkids that are going to throw out a lot of candy. So we're excited to have you guys, but we want to give you this award and thank you guys for volunteering and being awesome people in our community. Thank you. Thank you.
Just take a second. I want to put a plug in for the Sunset in the Park on Sunday night. It's at 6 o'clock, kind of like a bull in the china closet. It's at 6 o'clock on Sunday night. Come out. We have some really good speakers. You heard a couple of them tonight. There's going to be a couple more that's lifelong residents of Mapleton. And they will give us an awesome report on what's going on and what it's been like. And when Mapleton was at 1,200 people and Main Street didn't even go down all the way, you couldn't go east and west on Main when I was growing up in Mapleton. So it's come a long ways. So I got some things. 6 o'clock Sunday night.
Hey, Gary, when you heard those essays, it reminds me of the conversation you and I had several years ago when we made that heritage video, when you shared some of the things about Mapleton. Did it sound familiar to what you experienced so many years ago?
It did,
Some of those same words recurred in those essays that you shared.
Yes, Mapleton was a great place and is still a great place to grow up. And, it was a place that we could ride our bikes without any problems, any concern, drive tractors and trucks at 13, 14 years old. Now the police officer, he'd arrest somebody that would do that. But the fire department, the Coke machine was 25 cents a Coke, and when you opened the bottle, ice would come out. It was the best thing when you're hauling hay and grain and that to stop in. They didn't lock the police department, the fire department at that time. And you could just go in there and put 25 cents in and get an ice cold Coca-Cola.
That's awesome. Okay, if you guys will come up, and if you have any family here, Hallie and you guys' team, come up for the photo. Logan's all about giving away swag today, huh? Gifts. Okay, our next ceremonial item is Miss Mapleton Springville. Are you going to come up and present? Okay, awesome.
Hello, I'm Lainey. I just got crowned back in March, so I'll just tell you a little bit about what I've been working on so that you're aware of what's going on in the community with me and my royalty. But my service initiative this year is called Moms and Minis, which basically is just focusing on the moms in our communities and their babies and whatever they need help with, especially focusing on moms who have babies and children in the NICU and things like that, because my family is really sensitive to that, and it means a lot to me to be able to do what I can to help the women in our community feel loved and seen. And then also with Pioneer Days coming up, my royalty will be pretty much to every event. I'm pretty sure we've got at least one or two or all of us there. So we're just kind of looking forward to being a part of the community and being out and about, and also just wanted to let you guys know that if anything is needed in the city, that we are super excited and pumped and willing to just be to wherever. So feel free to reach out and put us to the task, because we're ready to do anything. But yeah.
Congratulations. What
Yeah.
help do you need with your Moms and Minis initiative? Is there anything specific we can do for you?
Currently right now I'm just working on setting up areas where I can collect donations, like money donations and also supplies. I've been going back and forth with the NICU and seeing what they need and things like that. So we're looking at getting drop boxes in Springville and also maybe in Mapleton, but there's more specific locations in Springville, so that'll probably be where they're located. So far, no, but when I get things going, then
We
yes.
drive through Springville, so we're
Yeah, I
happy
feel like
to
it's like
keep us
pretty
posted.
close.
It's a great initiative.
But thank you. But yeah, right now, I don't think there's much that I can ask for help with, but maybe later on. Thank you so much, though.
Well, we're excited to work with you guys. I assume you're alone tonight. You don't have your...
Yeah,
your,
none of them could come tonight, unfortunately, but I'm representing.
Awesome. And you're invited to every event, obviously, and we'll reach out when we need some volunteerism, or we'll have Logan set you guys up for helping out during the celebrations next week.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to come speak to the council with any items. We would ask that if you're here to speak to an item that's later in the agenda on a public hearing item, that you do it then. But we've got 4 people signed up for the public forum to come up, and we'll just go down the list. Please try to keep your remarks short, and remember that this is an opportunity to address the council with any concerns or thoughts or ideas, but it's not open to discussion. It's just the council will listen to your thoughts. So first up is our wonderful friend Gary. When you come up to the mic, please state your full name for the record.
The name's Gary Calder. I live at 76 West, 1200 North here in Mapleton. The mayor came by my house and Rob to talk to me about the possibility, well, not the possibility, about the need for a stop sign, a 4-way stop on my corner there at 1200 North Main Street. So I appreciate them coming by. And just as a little background, I used to work here in Mapleton, city engineer, public works director for 9 years. I was on the interview panel to hire Corey and Sean, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but I just recently retired from Provo City as a director there, so I'm an engineer. I do have a concern about a 4-way stop. I know it's in anticipation for a roundabout. I will say in Provo, I think I built 7 or 8 roundabouts around Provo, so I do know about the need and the versatility of a stop sign versus a roundabout and the signal. I am concerned about the 4-way stop on one of the only really north-south street here in Mapleton other than at Main and Maple. I do know when I was here at the city, just the stop sign here on Main and Maple, the shenanigans that we went through trying to, at one time it was a 2-way stop, then it was a 4-way stop. It might have been at one time a 3-way stop. What I'm concerned about at our corner, I believe, and this is, I've not seen any studies that warrant the need for a 4-way stop, but my concern is that from my perspective, most of the accidents that happen out that corner are not people traveling on Main Street. These are people that are going east-west. These are people that are running the stop sign. My concern is if you put a stop sign on Main Street, which has been open to traffic for as long as I've been around, you will have problems. You will have accidents. A roundabout, of course, is not meant to stop traffic unless the roundabout's full. My perspective to you, and I realize you don't make decisions here, mine is to voice opposition against that 4-way stop because in my opinion, you could soon have a 4-way stop at 1600 North. You could have one at 12th North, which we're talking about. You would have one at 8th North because someday 8th North will go all the way down. That road will be extended and go down to the stoplight on the highway. How many stop signs are we going to put on the one main road going through Mapleton? And it would be interesting to look, and I haven't looked and I haven't asked Rob to do this, but would be to look at those accidents that are on that. And prior to doing a 4-way stop, let's look at other options to what we can do to help slow that traffic down. Okay, as far as that goes. A lot of people think, and Rob was a traffic engineer, we worked together at Provo City. A lot of people think that a stop sign solves all your problems. There's been numerous studies that say just the opposite. The stop sign causes more problems. It doesn't slow down traffic. It actually speeds up traffic because people speed up between the signs. So just be careful because there's a lot of traffic there, especially during school. And with the junior high and the elementary school there, you'll be causing, in my opinion, more problems. Yes, in my opinion, there's some things that I could, and I don't mind talking to later with the mayor and Rob and the staff regarding some suggestions that I have to help make that in the interim as we move forward to that roundabout, because I do believe the roundabout will happen. I think it would be a good, wise choice, but the 4-way stop I'm totally opposed to, and I've voiced that concern to the mayor and to Rob as well, but that's the comments that I have is just be careful. you may cause another problem as you're trying to solve another one. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, next is Michelle Anderson.
Hi, I'm Michelle Anderson. I'm a resident of Mapleton. Do you need my address? Do you need my address? Okay.
I don't think we need it.
So I just first want to thank you and all the staff at Mapleton for the work that goes into the Pioneer Day celebration. It's just a fantastic event, and I think it's like one of the best community events in Utah. And actually, I think our fireworks are better than Stadium of Fire a lot of times, so I appreciate that. I've noticed, though, over the last several years with the growth of Mapleton and the growth of the event and drawing people from surrounding communities, that there's a continuing issue with space and availability of space. So I'd like you guys to consider creating a policy that will address this. I had sent in some pictures of past events that will show you what I'm going to address in the next few minutes. So you can take a look at that. But by Friday morning, when people are allowed to save space, by about 11 to noon, already almost the entire park is completely blocked off by people claiming space with the use of ropes, stakes, caution tape, and other barriers. These aren't small family-sized picnic areas. These are, as you'll see in the pictures, up to 30 by 40 feet for, or effectively like 300 to 1,200 square feet of public park space reserved for a single party. The size of this reserved areas that is not just a few people, but is widespread, goes beyond what I think most people would consider the reasonable or equitable space of public space. It kind of effectively converts shared public space into private space long before most residents even have an opportunity to arrive at the event. When the concert begins, I've also noticed that many of these large areas are sparsely occupied for many hours. I've even seen groups, and you'll see a picture in there of them using their space to play cornhole. And you know how large an area you need for cornhole. So while many families and people are walking through the park at the same time looking for any remaining patch of grass, and often on the perimeter, and you'll see in these pictures, it's just packed like sardines, if people can find a spot at all. And I just don't think this reflects the community spirit celebration that we're doing there. The park belongs to everyone. And while it's reasonable, I think, for people to arrive early and reserve some space, I don't think it's reasonable to have enormous sections roped and staked off. And so it's basically effective de facto privatization of public land at that point. I also have personally experienced and seen many people experience a safety concern with the ropes and the stakes that remain up the entire time as a tripping hazard, especially as it starts to get dark. People don't remove them. They're afraid of people encroaching on their space, so they keep them up. And it's just a big hazard for kids, adults, everyone walking through, especially as it gets dark. I don't believe, like I said, that the solution is to stop people from arriving early or saving a reasonable amount of space, but just to preserve the fair and equitable use. So I would suggest, I've looked at other counties and cities in our state, and of course around the country too, but particularly in our state, it's totally reasonable to have a per event policy. It doesn't even have to be a city code, but just reminding people this is public space, and only regulating that they cannot use tape, barriers, stakes, or any other material to block off public property, that blankets and chairs are allowed only. And so I just ask you guys to address this as it's continuing to be an issue in the future, and just allow us to be able to have this equal access to the space. And as far as enforcement, I don't foresee that this is a big enforcement issue. I think if you just put that out there, just like we do with when they can set out their materials, that with the notice that they will be removed if they're placed. As city employees are going about their normal business, they can remove them as needed. So just ask for you to consider that, if not for this particular Pioneer Day, then at least for the next. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. This has definitely been a concern by all of us, and we're already tooling with some ideas, so, yeah. Okay, next up is Jenny Green.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. My name is Jenny Green. My husband Darren and I live at 204 South Troy Street in Maple Bench Estates. Just days after closing on our new home a little over 2 months ago, we received notice by mail of a proposed cemetery in our neighborhood on our street. We are shocked by this proposal, particularly because the developer and city already agreed on and approved and recorded the subdivision plat and CCNRs for Maple Bench Estates that have zero reference to or indication of a cemetery in it. The development process exists to protect and ensure city planners, engineers, elected officials, commissioners, and developers that they are given the transparency they deserve to make informed decisions on behalf of and in the best interest of the city and its residents. Approving a residential subdivision plat involves extensive due diligence, compliance with laws, infrastructure requirements, permits, and community standards. Homeowners like us rely on these approved plans when making one of the largest investment decisions of our entire lives, and that's exactly what we did. We purchased our home in good faith and with the reasonable expectation based on the recorded plat and the existing CCNRs and zoning that the remaining lots would be developed consistent with the approved plat. We relied on you, the city members, and the process in making that decision. Had a cemetery been included and approved through the normal review process, had it been disclosed as part of the subdivision plat or the CCNRs, prospective buyers like us could have evaluated that information and then made a decision based on that. That is fundamentally different from introducing a cemetery after lots have been sold, after homes have been built and purchased, as a cemetery fundamentally alters the character of a neighborhood and undermines the legitimate reliance we have on the approved plat and zoning. If the city were to amend the subdivision plat at this point or allow a zoning change here, it erodes the vested reliance that home and landowners have on the city's approval process. More importantly, it would create a dangerous precedent, signaling that approved subdivisions remain subject to substantial change and use post-approval and post-sale. This undermines public confidence in the planning process and the city's role in protecting its residents. I'm confident a more suitable location for a cemetery exists, one that aligns with Mapleton City's master plan and doesn't introduce risk into the value of this neighborhood. I'm asking the City Council to preserve the integrity of the planning and development process to protect and uphold the recorded subdivision plat and zoning as it stands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate it. Darren, are you going to speak to the same subject? We have a public hearing item on this specific item where we'll open it to public hearing. Would you mind waiting till then to speak to it? Okay. Anyone else? That's all I had signed up for the open forum. Okay. Super. We'll move on to the next agenda item then, the consent agenda. This is where we have some agenda items that are just routine in nature and can be voted upon all together. And if any council member wants to pull any of these items for discussion, we can do that. But otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with
Egbert, yes.
But yes.
Peck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. We'll move on to our public hearing section. First item in that section is a consideration of a resolution adopting a rate increase in the solid waste collection fund for garbage collection services. And we'll turn the time over to Bryce.
Thank you, Mayor.
We have had this discussion multiple times, and I just want to recap the discussion now that it's in the public hearing. The Solid Waste Fund has experienced a loss over the last 3 years, and we had known that and we had understood that. We are just at a time now where we want to address the rates for that fund. As you can see, we've had a fund balance in the solid waste fund, and we had been able to cover those losses with the fund balance. We just recognize now that changes need to be made to the rates in order to avoid losses there. There are, as we've discussed, 3 main costs to the solid waste fund. So our options of decreasing costs are limited, but we have definitely looked at the cost factor. The Republic Services is our contractor that collects the garbage cans, collects the waste for us. South Utah Valley Solid Waste District is where our waste goes, and there's operating costs, overhead costs associated with that fund as well. We could decrease costs at Republic Services. In order to do that, we'd have to go out and bid for other contractors to perform that service. Looking at that, we've been with Republic Services for quite some time. My entire time here, we've been with them. We've recently renewed a contract with them in 2024. That's a 5-year contract and would be available for renewal in 2029. So it's definitely something that we'll consider at that time. As we've considered this each year or each renewal period, we do recognize that we have a pretty good situation with them. They also collect for Spanish Fork and Salem. So it's kind of a good situation with the 3 cities right here working with them. There are other options, other vendors out there, but we just haven't wanted to open up that yet due to the costs that we're currently getting from them. And then South Utah Valley Solid Waste District, as we are a member of that district and part of that district, we can't exactly easily leave. So that's not a cost that we can easily get out of or decrease. We do have a voting member that attends that board, and so we do have some influence there, but the costs we can't easily just change those costs. And then our operating costs, those are just continuing to increase as all of our other funds' operating costs have increased as well. So we've looked at those, the expense side of this. Our assessment of it is that a rate increase is our best approach to be able to fund that enterprise. Looking at that, we've discussed multiple rates. And as a council and as staff is what we've ended with proposing is $14 for the first can, $13 for any additional cans. An analysis of that, I believe that's a good position for our 2 cans. It costs about $12 per can for the entire collection and disposal of the waste. It's about $12 per can. So 13 and 14 are a good balance in staff's opinion. And I think that was it. This is a public hearing, so I'll turn the time back for you guys to have any questions.
Any questions or clarification before we open it to the public?
No.
Okay, then we'll officially open this item to public hearing if anyone wants to speak to it. Remember to please state your full name.
Hi, I'm Mike Eskridge, live over in South Hollow. I only had about 10 minutes to prepare when I saw the announcement. And I do realize that there is a deficit, which was planned as a deficit, by the way, for the year compared to last year's cost. So you started out at a deficit in planning. But I do find a little bit of a disparity that for a 15% increase in the per ton weight, that for the single can, it's a 21.7% increase in the fee to the citizens, and for an extra can, it's a 62.5% increase over their current rates. There's a disparity in the rates. I've lived in multiple other places. I've been in Mapleton for 4 years. I've lived in Yuma, Arizona, Washington, Idaho, and a whole bunch of other places when I was in the military prior to that. I've used Republic in more than one town. Every place other than here where I've lived, Republic charges extra for an overstuffed can. If your lid is not closed, they charge you more. In the places where they don't do that, the trucks have a scale built in, and there's a limit to the amount of weight that you can put in your can. And they charge individually for the extra weight of the can. I did the math on the tonnage based on what the full fee was, and it's actually a little bit less than it was last year by tonnage. It's about 1,200 tons less at this point in time than it was in last year's report. So something isn't quite right. I'm not quite sure what it is, and I think I found perhaps a mistake in the budget. Again, I only had about 5 minutes, but I did notice that the dump fees have been $550 every year, but for some reason, now it's $5,050. Perhaps somebody added a zero somewhere or fat-fingered that. That's not going to solve the disparity that you have, of course. But that's an 818% increase for the dump fees. Unless when they moved the transfer station, they decided to increase everything 800%. I don't think that's correct. Again, I know we have to do something to solve that, and I only had a few minutes to look at it. I looked at some of the categories trying to figure out the budget. I am a business person. I do P&Ls and budgets every week for a very large multinational company, so I'm used to looking at budgets. And I just picked one thing to start because I only had a few minutes. So, well, look at postage and see how it's split out in the water bill. And honestly, I can't figure out how it's split out. Some of the categories between sewer, wastewater, PI, garbage, some of them say postage, some say postage and printing, some say postage, and then they have a separate line for printing. Some are zero, some have a charge, and they're not evenly split out for that bill that is mailed out. But I did total those up, and it equates to about $1.15 per household, assuming we have 3,500 houses currently that have service in Mapleton. So that's $1.15 per month for their bill. So that's printing the paper, postage, and mailing out the bill. Whether or not that's correct is, I don't have the details about that, but the way that those are broken out by the things that are in the utility bill doesn't have any rhyme or reason to me. So it seems that if we went through the budget, perhaps we could find a better way to even those out. It's still not going to solve the disparity, but I think there are other ways to compensate for that extra charge. Republic, again, is a good company. I've used them for many, many years, long time. But I've never worked somewhere or lived anywhere where everybody in the neighborhood gets the same flat fee regardless of how heavy their can is and how many cans they put out. It's not normal outside of this particular region of Utah, as far as I know. You're charged by weight, you're charged by usage, and to the points up here, additional cans are usually the same exact price like Spanish Fork. You don't get it cheaper for an extra can, but it's done by tonnage and how full the can is. So it seems a little odd to me. Just wanted to put out a few facts. It took me about 5 minutes to figure that out. So, thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I'd be interested in seeing the documentation and maybe meeting with Bryce afterwards to see that disparity error that you found. Okay, anyone else?
Hello, my name's John Higgins. I'm also talking about these rates. I realize that something has to be done. I appreciate that slide that Bryce put up about, and I think it showed the reserve at the end of 2025 of what, $499? But I looked at, based on what was put on the website, the disposal, for the first can only, from 2023 to 2026, it's about a 23% increase. The disposal cost from $40 to $46 per ton is about a 15%, 16%. And then the waste collection fund deficit for 2026 shows $122,000. And that's about a 15% of what the revenue increase in revenue is needed to make up the expenses. This gentleman seems to be more versed. I couldn't put apples and oranges between the first can and the disposal course fees, but I just did the waste collection fund deficit item, and it looks like 15% would cover the annual loss. Maybe I'm missing something, but probably need to take a look. I'd recommend that you take a look at that a little bit more for the people before you do a rate increase. I know my can with just my wife and I is usually a couple bags of garbage in it. So, I realize it's sometimes it goes up, but I think. I don't have a problem with a rate increase, but a modest one to cover things. And also, I'd encourage the city to look at recycling. I mean, there's a lot of times I have Amazon boxes stuffed in there where I could stuff in a recycling can instead. So maybe that would help also. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close the public comment and open it up for discussion or further questions from the council.
Brace, could you speak to the purpose of the reserve balance and, why we want it to be a healthy amount?
Yeah, absolutely. So this varies per fund. In our solid waste fund, the reserve balance is a more of a backup balance. We use our reserve balance to purchase capital and to usually it's for large capital items. In the solid waste fund, we don't have a lot of capital. The city doesn't own capital. There was discussion years ago of do we start purchasing capital and maybe do some of the services on our own. So we kept that reserve balance a little bit higher, and we continued to grow that reserve balance. But then we determined that those costs were just simply too high, and we weren't willing or ready at the time to collect the services ourselves. So
There was also some unknowns with Solid Waste District and what their plans were with that project. So we had to watch that closely because that's been a discussion they've been having for probably a decade now. Obviously, that project is now completed, and now we know the true cost with that.
Yeah, so our reserve balance, the reason why we are allowing a loss in the fund is because we don't have that much capital to purchase, so we're getting that to a more reasonable amount. Now we're at a point where we do need to stop eating into the reserves and have a rate change in order to stop using those reserves. And as we discussed in prior council meetings on this topic, we are going a little bit on the higher end of we're proposing a higher increase to $14 and $13 based on our previous discussions. We could definitely decrease that amount. It's just, as we had discussed in those council meetings, that we could potentially run into the same issue as costs increase, that we would continue to chip away at those reserves. At $14, our best estimate is that we'll have about $100,000, give or take, of reserves at the end of the year. So, yeah, that is plenty of reserves for that fund. Could we decrease the rate and get by? Yeah, we could do that. We're just going to have this conversation again sometime down the road. It's impossible for me to predict when that would be, but we could definitely take the approach, as John was pointed out, of doing a lower increase and not having as much reserves or net income this fiscal year.
Will you remind me, doesn't the Republic Service, they have like an annual or a regular increase, though, that we're not?
Yes,
we don't
there's a, I think it's a 5% built-in increase per year. And yeah, I mean, it will get to a point where we're going to want to bid that out. We've just, in the 5-year periods that it's come open for discussion, we were comfortable with where the rates were at.
Well, one thing to add to that is that there's not very many companies out there in the state of Utah that does this. So your Republic Service is fairly common use in Utah County area.
But because of that increase that we're aware of that's going to happen, that's kind of why we went to the higher, was to prepare for that, so we don't have to keep changing it every year, correct?
Yeah, and that was the approach, that was the direction we were given. We could take the approach of, let's do a smaller increase, knowing that in the next year or two we'll have another increase, and that's fine as well. If we want to keep our fund balance. We have a policy in our finance policy of having enough cash flow in there. We're nowhere near having issues with that limit, but that is an option to slow down the growth in that fund and have a lower rate, knowing that in future years we'll just have to have this conversation again, which is definitely an option.
So based on my math, in about 4 years is when we'll probably have to, we'll probably, like I think the actual deficit and the revenue will be about equal, so with the rate increase that we're doing.
If no increase were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment about the flat rate versus by weight and oversized, just as an educational?
I'm not really apt to address that, as I am not, we don't manage we don't have the trucks, so I don't know anything about scales in trucks, to be honest. We're kind of, that's not really in our capacity to tell Republic Services that they should bill us per tonnage.
Yeah, this gentleman was kind of hitting on that too, is it's not common in the state of Utah to do it that way. It's interesting how other states do that, but in Utah, that's not a common thing.
I'm at their website right now, and it verifies if it's over 225 pounds, they might not lift it. But yeah, I think it's different than I've experienced outside of Utah.
I'm going to go back to Republic and talk about that a little bit with them. I was, hey, what do you do in these other states, and why hasn't that been a topic in Utah?
Yeah, don't talk to them.
For the record.
To our knowledge, we are not charged fees for open lids or past capacity lids. And to our knowledge, they don't charge the resident that. What we do know is if it's unreasonable, they'll just leave it and won't pick it up, and then we're working with the resident to get that resolved. But as far as I know, there's no fees for overfilled cans.
So what we get charged is a per can rate.
Yeah, it's a per can rate. I recognize we have two types of charges. We have a fixed charge by Republic Services, a per can charge. Their second can charge is less than their first can, but then we have a tonnage charge by South Utah Valley Solid Waste District, and it is the city does not have the means to determine how much your can weighed versus your neighbor's can. We have to do a flat charge for that. And this is why we built the rate system this way, so that we could, because we just don't have the ability to measure tonnage per can, and then to create a bill based off of that.
With that second can, it's just a little bit over our cost, right? So you said it's 1270 and 13. So I don't have a problem with the rates that we propose, and I'd make a motion to approve these rates. So I'll make a motion to adopt a rate increase in the solid waste collection fund for garbage collection services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call, starting with Melanie.
Yes.
Beck, yes.
Joan, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to our next public hearing item. This is a consideration of an ordinance to amend the future land use map of the general plan from low-density residential to parks, and to rezone approximately 1 acre of land from RA1C to Open Space and Parks OSP located at 34 South Troy Street. And we'll turn the time over to Sean.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The applicant is the developer of the Maple Bench Estate subdivision. We've approved the preliminary plat, which was for 58 lots. Phase 1, or Plat A, is the only one that's been recorded to date, and it includes 20 lots. The applicant is looking at subdividing Lot 18 and having the western portion, that's about 1 acre, for a private family cemetery, and then the eastern portion would remain a residential lot. The applicant is requesting approval for approximately 110 plots is what they're contemplating for their private cemetery. The proposal does require a general plan amendment as well as a rezone request. So this is if you look back on the screen here, this is the original, the preliminary plats that have been approved. Lot 18 is here on the northern section, and they're proposing to subdivide this parcel where this would be the cemetery and this would be the residential lot. The applicant is also was looking at another location that's not been platted yet here at the end of Dogwood, and there'll be a concept plan I'll show you of what he anticipated in that location as well. And this is just a better aerial view. You can see this is Troy Street, so this elevation is quite a bit higher than when you come off of Maple Street. And then there's a private lane that would lead back to the location of the cemetery. And then again, there's quite a bit of elevation change from here up to the upper portion of Troy Street, which you can see in an image I'll show in just a second. And this is the proposed layout. So they would have a parking area that would be it's proposed to be grasscrete, so it has a solid surface, but we'll be able to grow grass through it, so it's not an asphalt. So it's not an asphalt parking area. And then they'll have a little roundabout with some additional parking spaces and the proposed plots there on the north end of the parcel. This is a view looking at that area. So the cemetery is located here, and you can see that the significant elevation change to where the residence would be further up on the lot. And then just another view a little bit further to the south. So rezones and general plan amendments, as you know, are legislative decisions. The City Council has a very broad discretion in approving or denying legislative decisions. So you can listen to the public feedback, you can review the general plan guidance and guidance from the zoning ordinance as you make your decision on this application. We included in the staff report a list of suggested considerations that are included in the zoning ordinance to consider when you're reviewing those. I won't read through these individually, but they've been included in your report for your review. As far as the general plan goes, the current designation is low-density residential, and the proposed designation would be for parks for that 1 acre section that would be the cemetery. The current zoning is RA1C. This zone allows for lot sizes as small as 1/2 acre, as long as the overall density of the development is 1 acre or larger. And so even if this lot was split as proposed, the remaining residential lot at .7 would still be consistent with that RA1C for the lot sizes. As far as the existing zone, it does not allow for private cemeteries. That's why they're requesting to rezone it. The only zone that we have a private cemetery as an allowed use is the open space and park zone, which is what they're proposing. The concept plan, again, is not the final plan. The applicant would need to come back to the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit, but it's intended to show you essentially what the intent is of the applicant. As far as traffic and parking goes, cemeteries, especially small private cemeteries, would likely result in very little daily impact. Where there could be some potential impacts is when there's a service at the cemetery, in which case it's likely that the parking that's proposed on site may not be able to contain all the traffic and parking. So there should be an expectation, if this is approved, that there would be at least times where parking would likely result on Troy Street and potentially other locations. Now, there are some basic requirements for state law that the applicant would need to follow if the city council approves of the rezone. Some things like a plat needs to be recorded, there needs to be an endowment fund to ensure long-term maintenance, things like that. As far as options, the commission, or excuse me, the council in this case, has the ability to approve, deny, or approve with conditions or modifications. As I mentioned, the applicant wanted to include, he may refer to this in his comments, but this was the proposed layout. Quite a few more plots, I think just because the land was a little bit larger. This is at the Dogwood location that he had thought of as well as a possible option. But with that, it is a public hearing, so I'd recommend taking public comment, hearing from the applicant, and then the council can address these items in more detail.
Okay, any clarifications or questions before we open it up? We want to let the applicant speak first. Come on up, Dr. Wendell.
I gotta go. So, sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I realize that what you do is a tremendous public service, that you have to listen to lots of people, but thank you. Just a little bit of background here. The catalyst is my 93-year-old mother-in-law. So we've been working with Sean. We've actually been considering this proposal for about a year, researching what's required, working with state requirements and so forth. Sean and I have met a couple of times. We've gone to a couple of sites to try to find something that is beautiful and appropriate and would be acceptable to the city. So first of all, I just note that all land is subject to change. This is what you know that here is the city council. The lot that is left behind, and of course the property, do we have a laser pointer or something?
Yeah, you can use this one. Line right there.
So and I don't know if you've had a chance to see this, but if you go up there, this doesn't work.
The red one.
Oh, okay. So as you can see, this shoreline trail that we deeded to the city, and by the way, we did fix the elevation, graded that so that it is walkable and usable. We put in retaining rock to the east of the trail so that the city would not have to when we flatten this property. But as you can see, a good portion of this property is off very steep slope, and this area is really isolated from this area, which is very isolated from this area. You have a steep mountainside there, so this particular lot, which is where people would, this is where it would be, this part would be split off, would be 0.7 acres, which is larger than the even the previous landowner that just spoke about this issue. So, and it is mostly flat, and of course, I think where any home would want to be built is up on that bluff. This particular piece of property is down a private lane. It cannot be seen from the west. You can't see it from the north. You can't see it from the east. You can't see it from the south unless you own the lot next to it, which no one owns at this point. So I think that the impact for current landowners is pretty minimal. The other thing that we did is we reduced the concept plan or the size of this private cemetery, which, by the way, Mapleton has approved a private cemetery in the past, so there is precedent for this. There's one on Maple Street, as you know. When we built this subdivision, the city, and Gary Calder and I were deeply involved with that at one point, but the city requested a 28-foot roadway, and we, of our own volition and at our own expense, built that out to 40 feet because we wanted to have adequate street parking. People that would live along here would potentially have extended families, and so it's a very low-density area. The average lot size in this subdivision is nearly 2 acres, so it's already very low density. There's very little traffic, and this particular street that we put in has more than adequate parking on both sides of the street that exceeded substantially what the city had requested. Secondly, I would simply note, sorry, what happened? I hit the wrong button. I would simply note that we are attempting to zone this to an open space and park zoning, which means there won't be a house down there. It means it will be grass and trees in perpetuity. Part of this area is about 50% of it is encircled by this trail that the city has, that we negotiated with the city. So a good portion of this land is orphaned, if you will, from this particular piece of property. The other thing that I wanted to say is that we don't anticipate that there would be much, if any, impact to this at all. I mean, my mother-in-law is 93. That'll happen sometime. It happens to everyone. But this is not going to be a high volume and when we spoke to the Planning Commission, we even agreed to phase it if they thought 100 lots was too many. So we've gone from 1,000, which was the original plot down next to Dogwood Drive, to the 400 concept plan that I sent to you, to, you know, roughly 100 plots at this point. So pretty minimal impact. The other issue that was raised was this CC&Rs. As a developer, until 40% or 80% of the subdivision is built out, I still have the ability to amend the CC&Rs if that's needed. So there's nothing in the CC&Rs that restricts us from creating an open space or park area. So in any event, I think it's a very modest proposal. It will enhance the long-term vision and beauty of Mapleton. This will be grass and trees and a quiet place. It'll be the quietest neighbor that exists in the city. It's literally down a private lane that's at least 3-4 lots away from the nearest person on Troy Street. And we just think that it has, would have a minimal impact to the adjacent property owners. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Gibby?
Not right now.
Okay. All right, stay standby,
Okay.
Wendell, and we'll open up to public comment. Yeah, we're going to open it up to public comment, and anyone that can come to speak to the item. Please come to the mic and state your full name and address the council. Come on up. Thanks for waiting.
Well, I had to. I was with her. My name is Darren Green. My wife is Jenny Green. I don't know her address. Whatever she said is where we live. The developer just said that this was an idea that he got because his mother-in-law is 93 years old. Well, she was 92 last year. Why didn't he come up with this idea last year before I made the decision to spend $2.5 million on this home that's just down the road from this? I had no idea this was happening until we had moved into our home. Our mail had been piling up in our mailbox, and there was a notice from Mapleton City. We had missed the Planning Commission notice, and I spoke with Sean and said, I just spent $2.5 million in this home. I spent $2.5 million on this home to live in a place where the traffic is low. I'm up on the hill. I spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in that $2.5 million to buy protection from you. I buy protection from the city when I pay for my permits. When I was 29 years old, the first house I owned, I built myself, and I was complaining to the inspector it was up in Linden 30 years ago. I'm 59, and this guy's name was Ken, and I said, why do I have to pay $4,000 to build a house? $4,000 is not a lot, but back then it seemed like a lot. And he said, well, you're buying protection. You're paying for the city engineers, the city lawyers, the city planners, the inspectors. You're paying for me to come out and make sure that your house doesn't fall off the hill. You're making sure that you're paying for the city planners to design a subdivision or the city and the subdivision that protects you. And I thought, oh, okay, that's a different way to look at it, instead of just thinking that I'm wasting my money. And that inspector helped me all the way through my process. I didn't know what I was doing. Every time he came and inspected something, he would say, okay, this is the next step. And I used his skill to basically guide me through the process. I relied on him. I relied on architects. I relied on engineers. I relied on soil engineers. We live in a house on Troy Street that hangs off a cliff. I hope that the soil engineers know what they were doing so that I don't fall off the side of the hill. We paid for this. We paid this amount of money for the view and for the fact that the traffic is very low. And then when we find out that there's going to be a cemetery, which I don't know if a cemetery increases the value of your home, decreases the value of your home, increases traffic, I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't look at that. But I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't be forced to wait to see what happens to our subdivision and to our house specifically because of a cemetery that could have been proposed long before I made the decision to build this house or to buy this home. And cemeteries are great. You know, people get old, people die. I wish I had enough land that I could have a family cemetery somewhere. But if I wanted a cemetery, I would propose it to the city before I set up a subdivision and then start selling $1 million lots and $3 million homes in the subdivision. Like, I can't believe that I'm even here arguing this. This seems unrealistic that somebody could just halfway through this all of a sudden propose a cemetery in the middle of our subdivision. So I guess we're here to just, I hope you protect us. I paid for protection, and I hope that you guys protect us. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Anyone else?
It's me again, John Higgins. I come at a different angle on this, and that's the longevity. Like, who owns this cemetery? And then what happens if it goes belly up, if it's a company or individual? I saw that you had a $25,000 endowment fund or something like that. How fast would that go? And then what happens if, let's say it goes up and the 25,000 is gone, then who's on the hook to fix it? Is it the city? Then it becomes my problem then. So I think that needs to be addressed so that as part of this, if you proceed forward. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
I'm Trudy Gibby. This is going to be my family cemetery, and it's really creepy to come to this meeting, talk about how my family is going to die. It's not what we're planning. And we would have put this, we did propose this, but perhaps in a different place, to facilitate our own family, and that is all. We don't assume that our family will die quickly. My mother, we assume, will be the next one. She's 93 this year, and that is why we're pushing this a little bit to make sure she has a place to rest. But my husband and I don't plan on dying very soon, and so as far as the traffic and the interruption of the neighborhood, there should, we hope, not be any. And as it goes along, the state regulates the $25,000 deposit, but we're planning on living right up the hill. And at a certain point, we are totally invested in making this beautiful. And as far as property value, it is hidden. We have gone down the hill, looked up, you can't see anything. We've looked from every angle, you really cannot see the property. And so it's kind of a dead zone. It's private property, private for a family. I don't see any indication that there would be anything to change the property value for good or for bad. Right now, I live in a home in Maple Street, and that it's next to the trail that goes down to the reservoir. Well, when that home was built, that trail wasn't there, and the reservoir wasn't there. And it has been a nightmare for me to deal with the landscaping on this hill that we don't own it, but it's against and its problem. So, we have looked at every angle, trying to make this as least invasive. It's our property, it's our family. It's not open for public, it's our responsibility. It's not a business, it's just a place for my sweet little mom to rest and not, we're hoping, go to Roosevelt. We want her close. And that's why it took a little time. We had to talk her out of going to Roosevelt and coming to Mapleton. Otherwise, we would have maybe done it sooner, but it didn't occur to us. Now it's our private property, and we want to facilitate that. So hopefully, the other neighbors are full-on fledged happy. They don't have teenagers. We've had a lot of motorcycles. We've had a lot of people driving up there. Who knows what they're doing in their cars, leaving lots of trash, doing lots of stuff, and we pick it up and move on. We hope that all of these people that we're burying in there will have better manners and will be quiet. They won't, well, we can't guarantee that cars won't park there, but who knows? A cemetery maybe is the next necking spot. Who knows about that? But we have done everything we can to make it as least invasive to our neighbors as possible. So please just let my mother stay in Mapleton.
Thank you, Trudy.
Can I say one comment about it? So when this issue was discussed with the Planning Commission, it will be fenced and gated, and there will not be access for people to park or whatever. I would also tell you that we put in a well at the base of Maple Mountain about 20 some odd years ago. So there's a well there, and we piped a 6-inch water line through that property, and that cemetery will have a perpetual easement to water. So it's really just a matter of somebody mowing the grass. The state regulates the fund, if you will, of what, they don't want you to be on the hook of it. We don't want you to be on the hook of it. So we have to put money in an independent trustee that accrues interest, whatever investment every year. And, but we do have a private cemetery in Mapleton that's been approved, and we're just requesting that we can have the same consideration. Thank you. Any other questions?
Let's let anybody else come to speak, and then we'll close the public comment after everyone has a chance. Anyone else want to come to speak? Jenny, come on up.
A cemetery is a cemetery. As lovely as it can be, as small as it can be, it's a cemetery. I'm a full-time realtor. Everything I do has to do with value, has to do with what is going on in the community. I have to disclose all of that. If it's hidden, that does not matter. As a realtor, it's incumbent upon me to disclose there is a cemetery in my neighborhood. There's a decline in value with that. That's my profession. I can speak to that. Please consider that.
Okay, anyone else? Last chance. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment for this item and open it up to questions for the applicant or for Sean or for any clarification discussion.
I had a question. I know they mentioned that $25,000 fee you have to pay, but where's the, like, who's going to maintain it to say when you're gone? Where, is there a maintenance plan? Is there restrictions of the land can't be sold? Like, where, is that part of this proposal?
Not from the city's perspective. I mean, we would treat this like any other private property that, the city doesn't have any specific restrictions, but the state requires that they have the fund, and then each plot that gets sold or used, they have to dedicate, I think there's a portion of it that's supposed to go towards that as well.
Yeah, I can speak to that because I mean, again, we started on this over a year ago and maybe longer. I had several law firms research it. It does, the state does heavily regulate this. You have to set up an independent entity. You have to fund it in perpetuity. And so we have to comply with those state regulations. And there are other regulations that you have to abide by there. So this is really just one step to get it approved to open space in that area. And I will say that the Planning Commission did vote to move this forward, as you know. And I would simply respond to Jenny that she drives by a cemetery every day going to her home. So there are, I mean, I could argue that her lot has degraded the value of my lot there because hers is 0.57 acres and mine is 3 acres. But that's really not the point here. The point is that this is a lovely spot that we've worked very hard with the city to try to find something that would be amenable, appropriate, that would be acceptable to residents. And I think it's a pretty minimal impact here. I mean, really minimal impact. We're talking maybe a couple of burials in the next 10 years. That's not even measurable impact. So that's my comment. Other questions?
I know with the cemetery, that's different from the original concept plan. How about the private drive? Was that always part of the concept plan? Okay. So the other 2 lots south of it aren't affected by the cemetery?
Well, there's actually, there's only 1 lot. We've reconfigured that a bit because the other lot, which is, let me see if I can. So this as Sean mentioned, this is very steep hill. You cannot access this property, even this, from Troy Street. So the original plan had a dedicated, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4 lots before you get to the one in question. But this particular lot has its own driveway that we built off of Troy Street. So there's only one lot that would have a shared common driveway, and that's only because you have to come, that's always been that way.
Okay.
You can't get down that hill otherwise. And in fact, if you look, the street, when we poured the concrete, it has the, you know, the sidewalk kind of poured for that.
The threshold. Okay, any other questions, discussion?
No, I'll just mention, being in this position, I've noticed a lot of it has to do with balancing property rights. And I appreciate Sean including the city code section 18.12.010B, which had several guidelines on what we should review when considering a rezone. And I know this application is a private cemetery, but a lot of the points in the guidelines have to do what's the public purpose, points 1 and 2 specifically. And I don't see a public purpose for the cemetery. I don't see it benefiting the public, which, again, that's what we should base our decision on, a rezone. And I do see adverse effects, or adverse impacts created by this proposal as well to the adjacent landowners, which is part of point 6. So just sharing my thoughts on what's included in that section.
Can I make one comment to that? The cemetery we have on Maple Street is a private cemetery. It doesn't, this is a private cemetery. It doesn't restrict that. I mean, we could sell that plot to you, just as there's a plot down the street here. You own the right to that as a private property. What we have here in Mapleton is not a public cemetery. We have private cemeteries, and I mean, there is a public benefit. We're all going to pass away at some point. This is a beautiful, secluded place to honor one's loved ones, and that's part of what we do. So, anyway.
I'm sorry, Darren, our rules of order show that once the public comment is closed, we're not allowed to allow more public comment. We're just going to deliberate, and if there's a motion, then we'll have a vote on it. I'm sorry, no. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions, but I will comment. I share Councilmember Beck's perspective on this. Were this several years ago, before this original proposed plat came in, we would be having a different conversation. But I do not support this based upon the section 18 for the public purpose, and also I believe it creates adverse impacts on adjacent landowners, and so I would not support it. I would welcome the consideration elsewhere and at a different timeline, but I cannot support this either.
So the original proposal that we made was down just off of Dogwood, south of the city pond. That area is not platted at this point. It's and it was at the behest of Sean that we made a change to the location. So, I mean, we're certainly amenable to moving this to that location. We were doing this at the city's request.
I haven't seen it or been involved in any conversation, so I personally cannot comment. I can only comment on the application in front of me and the code that I've been provided from which to legislate. So that's where I am.
Well, we made two proposed plat. You saw the one that we originally submitted. So it should be.
I'm going to comment on mine. I share the perspective. I feel like if this had been included in the preliminary plat with that initial approval, we would be having a very different conversation. And so that is why I will not be in support of the motion or of the proposal.
I agree. It's not consistent with the plan that was brought prior to this development, this area. And I think it would be a different conversation if it was.
Well, my question is, all land changes, obviously, use over time, but we have unplatted areas down off of the bench that we had proposed to the city, and is that something that you can consider? Is that what our original proposal?
For me, at this point, I couldn't speculate on that. I would have to see an application about it, but I would invite you to meet in advance with council members. You're always welcome to do that, to discuss perspective before it comes to an application. As well, I personally, I won't speak on behalf of the council members, I'd be happy to join Mr. Conroy in a meeting as well. So if there is another location you're considering, I don't know exactly where it is. I haven't driven to it like I've driven through this one.
We showed it to the city council here.
I haven't driven that one as well. So, but for this
Did
location.
you get a chance to drive this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have driven it, but ultimately it comes down to what is the law and what do our ordinances state for this particular property. The other one sounds like it's different. I have not researched the other property, so I cannot comment on where I would land on that. Always welcome to submit applications and meet with us outside of that. I'd be willing to make a motion if there's no other discussion.
That'd be appropriate.
Okay, I will make a motion to deny the ordinance as stated to amend the future land use map.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call, starting with Casey.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Ebert, yes to the denial as a point of
Yes to the
clarification.
denial, yes.
But yes to the denial.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That's unanimous vote. We're moving on to the discussion items. Item number 5 is a discussion and an overview of Mapleton's RAP tax, and we'll turn the time over to Logan for that discussion.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Let me get through here real quick. Okay, so this is really just kind of as internally as staff, as we started discussing things, we realized we went through the budgetary process and then maybe failed to show a little bit of what the process that we went through. So recognizing that as staff, this is kind of a discussion to come back to retroactively show what we went through, but then also what you could expect to see in the coming years. These projects that I'll go over were approved in the budget. They were in the RAP tax special revenue fund. Now, we could have done a better job of itemizing those out, but they were approved as a lump sum in the budget. So just wanted to show this was the ranking sheet and then the final ranking after all of the applications were submitted and reviewed by the committee. So you can see each of them. We went through each of the applications, which I believe there was one. Camille, did you see the one that had the application by chance? It's okay if not. There, I had submitted, or I had just kind of shown what the application looked like. It's through jot form. Okay, maybe if you could, I can keep talking. But what it essentially is there's things that we have to have in there from state, but then also things that, as staff and for the committee to give them perspective and a little bit more to be able to look at as they go through their process. So as a committee, we opened up the applications in October, and then they were closed in December. And then as the committee, they reviewed them. I believe we met at the end of March, and then Councilman Lake was also on the RAP tax committee, so he was there. Just as a reminder, with RAP tax, the RAP tax committee is a recommending body, not a voting body. Obviously, they work together. Myself and Councilman Lake are non-voting. And so really we're there to just help with dialogue, answer questions, bring perspective. And I will say that did did happen. I think the purpose and the reason for the committee, I saw it firsthand. They asked great questions. They asked clarifying questions. They went in depth with, is there other alternatives? Have you looked at other things? So I was actually very pleased and had good conversation with Councilman Lake, and I'm sure he would attest to this as well. But I feel like the committee did their job on trying to do their part on asking those questions. And so this is a sample application that was submitted. This is open to anybody that meets the qualifications within the RAP tax program. This year, there were no external applicants. Everything was internal within Parks and Rec. But these are funds that could be used by our seniors. They are funds that could be used by external groups such as the Corral. So there's definitely other folks that can, apply through the process. So the reason I brought this one up is there was actually, so this was an application submitted by Colby, our parks manager, requesting funds for a trail maintenance trailer that would then be used up on our trails for service days when we have the Nebo Mountain goats, and it would just be stocked full of tools and other items to help build the trails. What was originally requested was $20,500, and then as you can see, find where it was at. Then what was recommended was $17,000. So again, I brought that one up to just note that, again, as the committee, they definitely didn't just look at things and are like, oh, cool. They asked great questions, and with that, then came back with a different recommending amount, which is the purpose of it. So the process was, as all the applications came in, I sent them out a couple weeks prior. As a committee, gave them a little bit of context for them to kind of start thinking on and going through individually. And then we met here at City Hall, and then for a couple hours and went through each of these applications and opened it up for them, to ask questions and make sure they understood what it was. And then this bottom graph then just shows where the ranking was after they got done. So Constance of the Park, the Community Theater, Creators Academy, and then the list goes down. One thing I did want to point out with the Community Theater is the funding that was approved when we came to the council back in January that was used for community theater this year, everything that was used was general fund dollars. No RAP tax was expensed in last fiscal year. Last year, we just budgeted revenue, and there was no expenditures. Part of that was the process and the timing. We really wanted to make sure that we got off on the right foot and followed the timing. And so we literally just collected the revenue, and we didn't have any expenditures. Now coming into this next fiscal year, that's what this funding then comes into play, is what started July 1. So you'll think for June community theater, that's what this funding would go
Next year.
towards
Next
for,
year.
yep, June of 2027. So still in this fiscal year, but a year out. So
But we have spent some money in the theater topic, and that's been through, as Logan mentioned, through our general fund money.
yep, everything for this year's show was general fund. Moving forward, for example, the community theater, the $22,000, that would be used for the production, the playwrights, the props, that type of stuff. That does not include the cost for labor and staff of the show. So it would still be partially funded, which again, that was included in the budget in the general fund as well. So that was the process that went through. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, this, as staff internally, again, we realized that maybe it wasn't as clear in the budget as far as what these specific items are. And so we wanted to come back, have this conversation, and then also, hopefully we're all learning together. It was the first year. If there's anything else that you as a council would like to see preparatory for next year as we go through that process, please provide staff that feedback, and then, we can make changes or whatever we need.
Logan, how many people do you have on that committee?
There was 5.
And they stay for how long?
We met for probably about 3 hours. So
Excuse me.
5 voting members.
Their term.
Oh, sorry. 2 of them are on 2 years, and then 3 of them are on 3. Just that way we could alternate them.
Got it.
So. And then I will say there's 7 if you include myself and Jake on that committee.
Okay.
But again, as
But you're not voting, you're just on the
non-voting,
committee.
correct.
Great.
Any other questions or thoughts?
It sounds like you've had some good learning opportunities. It's cool to see this whole process go through for the first time, and some great things we wouldn't otherwise have had. So I don't have any feedback, having not participated in the process, but it's great to be an outside observer and see that the intent of this tax is going to deliver on it, and I'm confident you'll just keep tightening the process and how that goes. So I'm excited to see what we can do with it.
No, awesome. And I will note projections of, we projected 120,000 in revenue. We won't have the final numbers until the state gets that back, but we're going to probably be closer to that 160,000 range. And then obviously each year we'll get better and more calculated on where that is. But, I think those early projections we definitely exceeded, which is good.
When does that money come? Or when will you know that number? What time of year?
Bryce, I don't know when this quarter.
Oh, middle of the year. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Get it every month. We just,
Oh.
takes them a minute to get started with the reports on.
You get the reports every month. Got it. I see.
Yeah, so we still have good data that shows.
The trend.
Yeah, we were about 139 at the end of last month.
Got it.
And so just based on that historical where we were, that's kind of why we're projecting that 160.
So a couple thoughts then. So as you see, obviously this is a discussion item you see from Logan's staff report. The funding that's being approved through the budget was 120,000. We anticipate, and we haven't spent any of that money yet. We have spent some money through the general fund, but we will spend that 120 throughout this fiscal year. And we recognize we probably will have an additional 40,000 by the time it's over to account for the following fiscal year, July of 2027. And we recognize that in the future, we want to make sure when we have Bryce bring the budget before you in that June meeting, generally speaking, that we share these, being a little more clear, because what we've done is, here we are now, a month or two later. Do you recall in that June meeting, as you've seen these 9 different items, that you were aware of that, or is it? So we're learning from this too, is making sure we get it to you in the right time frame as well. So
I think the added transparency or the added conversation is very helpful. And, but there's no rule, the anticipated additional funds coming in, that can roll over to next year? Or because you meet one time a year, is that correct?
Yep.
So it just rolls over?
Yes.
we want to.
Is that what we actually want? Having gone
Right.
through this process, if you have an additional $40,000 that could be a benefit to either an additional application or another review period, what's the preference based on what you've experienced so far?
I would still recommend we keep it in the same period of time that we do it, just to be consistent. But to that point, it absolutely could be, excuse me, where an application could be amended even after it was submitted or after actual numbers came in to reflect a more truer cost. So my recommendation would still keep it in the same timeline and not do anything else outside of that. Because as staff, I think we can do a good job of still projecting out and looking at those things to forecast them. And because really, we actually have about 160,000 difference, because the very first year we budgeted just revenue, no expenses, and then we exceeded that by 40,000, and now we're expensing another 120, which then means we're going to have probably 50,000. So really, it's about 140-ish thousand is what is in the RAP tax fund, even after it's expensed.
I
So-
actually really appreciate the principle of kind of having a reserve in here in case the projects we approved have an overage and they need like follow-on investment related to those.
Yep.
Since we know our numbers move for everything else anyway, and some of these are ones that are contingent upon market. So that's an interesting principle, yeah.
Yeah, and-
It'll be
and-
neat to watch that over years to see how that
Yeah,
works.
and to note too, the committee actually recommended, they actually asked if we could write a policy that said, hey, is there an amount that we could leave in reserve just for that? So again, just another, they asked really good questions, and so I think there are, those are things that we can definitely
It wouldn't
look
be a
at.
significant fund, but I imagine that would count. Bryce, does that count, if we have overage in our RAP tax, does that count against the percentage we're allowed? Like, it seems like it would be almost negligible, but.
Yeah, come on.
Just yell.
If I understand your question right, does that count towards our reserve limit?
Yes.
It does not.
Okay.
So it's not part of the general fund, so it's its own fund.
I think the key we would want to look at is identifying what we think is a comfortable reserve, as well as maybe there's some projects that we're like, hey, we need to save up for a couple years so we can cover the cost for that project. As long as we're able to justify to our citizens that we recognize the money that's coming in and we recognize how we're going to spend it, and we're not here to just try to collect money. And
The way it's currently set up, are we limited by policy or ordinance to, once these things are agreed upon, say in November, we have a project that comes up that's pretty needed, could we access the money and use it for that, or does it need to go through this process?
It would have to go through this process again. And just to clarify, from a budget perspective or from a finance perspective, I have no issue with the way that we're approaching it this way, because it is pulling it out. We're going above and beyond, whereas if we're to put this in the budget, it is going to be one page of about 60 pages. So I would have to single it out in the discussion and along with all of the other budget items that are in
maybe
that
what
time,
we do
which
is just bring
fine.
a meeting before you bring your budget. We
Yeah.
could bring this item and do just like Logan's doing tonight.
Yeah, because this is above and beyond, and it's great because we're discussing the individual topics and giving them due attention. And if we were to do that before the budget, then you'd have all the information needed.
Bryce and Logan, back to the mayor's point, if, say, come November of this year, we hear of a project that we're like, oh, wow, that would be pretty cool to do. When you say, Bryce, we got to go through the process, I think what the mayor's saying, can we go through that process in November, or do we have to wait until we hit the June of 2027?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the RAP tax is set up via the state and also by our own policy, and I mean, the council has discretion to call an audible, let's say, and places, like Spanish Fork has earmarked a percentage of their RAP tax for their Fit City Center bond. And so, I actually sit on their committee as a resident of Spanish Fork, and I don't get a say on whether or not they pay for that Fit City Center. They, as, their elected body said, nope, that's what we're going to do. So, yes, there is a way to do that. And if a project came up, I definitely think would be wise to have the conversation. But I still would err on the keeping it in the same timeline. Now, is it the same process? Maybe not. Maybe it's a different process and a different conversation. But as far as the timeline, I do think it'd be wise to stay similar that way.
Yeah, and if we got in the cadence and understood that was the cycle, then we wouldn't be tempted to use the money otherwise.
Correct.
Can you remind me how you advertise and when you advertise?
I'd have to go back and look, but it's in the newsletters on our website, and it started in October and then went through. And then I believe social media had a post, at least a post. I can follow back up and get you more specifics on that. And one thing too, on that note, with those external, non-city affiliated, you as the council have the ability to say, 5% of these funds we want to go towards those, or 2 applications. You're able to give us discretionary, I guess, wants within that. And then from there, then we can take that balance and then look at it and say, okay, we have 20,000 that can go to external funding sources for nonprofits and 501c3s and that stuff. So,
But time will inform that conversation as we
Yeah.
get more familiar with the types of needs, types of applications.
yeah. And I would say, again, comparing to other cities is really, really hard. In our scenario, we don't have a lot of those external, in Spanish Fork, for example, again, just speaking from my experience there on the committee, I mean, we had, I think, 12 or 13 external applications this year, but they're serving a much larger audience, more residents, things. Yeah, and definitely more money that way. But, so yeah, there's definitely some nuance that way. So.
I'll just state that. I know that when it was up for vote, it only passed by a couple percentage points. And so I appreciate being overly transparent about the process and showing us like this. And I kind of like that there's a wall between us in the Rep Tax Committee as well, which there obviously should be, so.
Yeah, and one thing too is just part of, again, what the state says we need to do, they'll be advertising, it'll be on social media. Again, we'll have that logo on the printed materials, those types of things that then reinforce, what the RAP tax is and what it's doing. And, so those will be things that you'll see as well to help on that transparency side, so. Any other questions or thoughts?
Thanks, Logan. Well done. All right, we'll move on to item 6, a discussion to item to review Mapleton City Code requirements related to shipping containers and swimming pools. Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, you recall on the shipping containers topic, our current ordinance prohibits them. We brought this up in 2025 when we were updating a number of supplemental sections, and there was some interest at least at rediscussing that topic, so that's why it's here tonight. At the time, we were recommending that, hey, maybe there's some allowance for a short window for people who need them for storage, for moving in or moving out. And then if they were being modified architecturally to be more of an architectural building, that we could allow them. The council expressed at least some interest in saying maybe they would be allowed even without architectural changes in some more rural areas was at least one of the comments. So that's why we brought it for you tonight, to just hear what thoughts you have on that. So probably let's address the shipping containers item first, then we can hit swimming pools after that, so.
I would just add, I have received a few calls, especially in those areas where there's agricultural uses, where they're discouraged that we don't allow for them there, as well as they getting the comments to me, well, we're going to turn everybody in then, and we're going to have to enforce every farmer in town. So to Sean's point, that's one of the things we're kind of looking at. So I am fielding some calls from time to time on this topic.
What about calls on blight for smaller lots that have them on them? Have any citizens complained about them?
Yeah, we've had to enforce on some.
And certainly I do agree that in these smaller lots, we don't want them there, but what you've got to look at is these 1 acre, 2 acre lots or bigger. Is there a concern if it's in their backyard, using possibly for agricultural purposes?
Yeah, part when we do get the concerns is even if they're large parcels, people tend to put them as far away from their own house as possible because they're not aesthetically pleasing, and so they put them right next to a neighbor, and that's when you hear the neighboring concerns. So.
The biggest worry I have with the topic, Sean's spot on with it, is the concern of the enforcement side, because if you get a complaint, we go out and tell them, hey, you can't do that in this 2 acre lot. They want to turn 40 other neighbors and citizens in with it. So
I'm supportive of removing the ban and replacing that with appropriate guidelines or appropriate requirements. And Sean's proposed several of them, and I think they're consistent. The one I had concern about is for the residential zone, the 7-day limitation specifically on cargo. I see fewer shipping containers, but it is very standard practice, the business of using a cargo container while you're doing construction or a clean out or something. That didn't exist when some of this was originally, written a while ago. And so my concern would be, I don't believe the 7 days is adequate. And I use the example as Sean and I were discussing earlier about, if I was doing a construction on an ADU, for example, it would take me more than 7 days, and maybe I needed that to store furniture or whatever, and I think that's a very reasonable thing. It wouldn't bother me in my neighborhood, for example, to have it 30 days.
You're referring to like a moving pod.
Yeah,
Correct. I'm referring to pods. Yeah, so a cargo container, not a giant metal shipping container. And Sean differentiates them in there, and maybe we need to be a little more specific about the length. If one's a 44 length versus a 16-foot length. Mm-hmm. But I think fundamentally my feedback is, yes, I'm supportive of lifting a ban, creating clear guidelines, and would recommend consideration in residential zones for cargo storage, like a pod with a certain length, for longer than 7 days. I imagine 30 or 60 days for that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. I think setting some clear, very enforceable, clear setbacks and other restrictions is a good thing to do. I think we should come up with some terminology, though, that matches what's in the industry and designate what a shipping container is versus what a pod is, what a cargo container is, and maybe even go as far as to specify the appearance of it, what the skin is made out of versus one could be completely fine to look at for 60 days, but the other one is rusted out and looking really unsightly. So I don't know, maybe we look into the terminology on that. Have you seen any evidence of that on other cities' ordinances?
I haven't, but we can.
We can be leaders on this. Is anyone in disagreement about lifting the ban with appropriate guidelines?
Does anybody
No,
disagree with
there's
the
part
1
of me,
acre?
there's part of me that feels like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm not getting into I'm not suggesting that we start regulating what is beautiful and what's not, but there's plenty of homes that I could say could be placed 100 feet from the nearest property line as well. But I don't have any problem with lifting the ban with some
So is
conditions.
the general idea for smaller than a certain size, you can only have them if they're architecturally altered to be more like a structure, and then from an acre or larger, that they don't need to have those same requirements, but they need to have some additional setback.
Yes.
We're talking shipping container,
Yeah.
I think, and we might need to split these things out.
Okay.
The purpose-driven cargo storage, that's a temporary storage solution, is different than a permanent shipping
And
container.
I think that's your
storage.
differentiator right there, temporary storage solution. Yeah.
And I don't have any preference for a temporary storage solution on any lot size. I think anybody can do that.
Okay. Nope, that's helpful.
What about the 1 acre? Everybody okay with the 1 acre designation?
It's pretty arbitrary, right? Just because it's a large lot.
I think
They
that's
just-
more interesting, the distance from the adjacent, and that should be pretty consistent with other construction requirements we have, I think. So I'd be interested what you
Okay.
research. I don't really have a prescriptive answer to that.
Okay, we'll continue to work on that one. The other item was just swimming pools. For many years, our requirement was an 8-foot setback. Recently, when we updated their building code, we changed that to say it could be 5 feet unless your PUE, your public utility easement, is larger than that. Then you'd have to stay outside the public utility easement. So in most cases, that's 10 feet. We had an applicant request a variance. The variance was denied by the planning commission, but the planning commission said, yeah, let's relook at the standard in general. We are getting more lot sizes that are smaller. There is some argument to that on smaller lots that a 10-foot setback may be excessive. We looked at what adjacent cities did, and Springville's you can have as close as 3. Spanish Fork, Provo were 5. Santaquin was like ours, was at 10 feet. I think staff's comfortable with the 5-foot setback, provided they get approval from the utilities to be within that public utility easement. Is probably where we'd fall, but again, we're open to the council's.
Does it matter if it's above ground or in ground?
No.
No.
I'm concerned about permission from a public utility easement, knowing that public utilities can change and new players can come to the table. So I don't think I'd be supportive of that. My concern is I'll need some help and I'll need to do some research on it. I'm receptive to changing to the 5. I guess that's what it is. The public utility easement, we don't control a lot of variables there. So that's my concern. The 5, I don't necessarily have heartburn with. I need to do some more education on the impact on neighbors if something goes wrong. I've received citizen feedback about another pool coming in that's elevated over their yard, and
If it breaks and
valid concerns if something breaks, and so I obviously, we're not approving anything today. I'm receptive to considering change for that. The public utility, I think, we don't know the future, so us saying, oh, if you get permission from so-and-so A, and then a new utility comes in because I don't know the future, technology or whatever, I don't know that I would support that. Again, I need more research, that's where my concern is, but then I need to understand a little bit more about safety and impact on surrounding neighbors. But receptive to that pending learning.
Can you have two separate, above ground and ground? Because there is going to be a difference
Yeah.
if something
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it'd probably be, actually, after you said that, the more I'm thinking about it, we would, if somebody applied for that today, we would apply the accessory, most likely the accessory building standard to that because it's above ground.
Okay.
So there would be some more, but yeah, we can definitely clarify that. The PUE issue, it's pretty standard in most cities that if there's some impact in a PUE, you get that letter signed off. It's a pretty standard legal precedent that you could do that without having issues in the
impact to
future.
future ones?
But we can look into that more as well.
So is there an assumption of reciprocity with any new public utility that might come in
Yeah.
if somebody before? That's interesting, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, 99.9% of the rear yard public utility easements
Isn't used,
don't
yeah.
get used.
The
but-
PUEs, they get recorded and run with the land, so they're able to see them and watch them to that.
Yeah.
So with shipping containers and above-ground pools, they would fall in that same category of if it's an accessory building on the property, then have to have those.
Yeah,
minimum
other
stand-
than we can include additional standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a point of clarification to your thing too, the public utilities that they would have to get permission from are us and anybody that we have a franchise agreement with. So if they were to put in their, their pool and then somebody got a franchise agreement, the franchise agreement is basically, you're accepting what's
All
there.
From that,
Yeah.
okay. That's helpful to
That's a
understand.
good-
Yeah,
that's
I
a good
think,
point.
I think that added clarification to it, okay.
But again, if you just wanted to keep it how we have it adopted, staff's not
Do you have-
concerned about that either.
For neighboring, I think probably a little bit more comparisons would be helpful for me, especially calling out if the PUE is with permission or from whom, or like, I could use some more information.
I wouldn't mind a conversation with Springville as well to see what kind of issues there have been with having 3-foot.
Yeah.
That's
That's tight.
way different than Santa
Yeah,
Quinn, for example, and
really
way
tight.
different than what we've had.
Yeah, I mean, if you think places that have pools more consistently, go to St. George, they're often 3 feet from the
Yeah.
fence line. That's pretty common.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, about what are the implications from people who have experience with the 3s and 5s, and like 10, obviously, I'm not concerned about, but
Yeah.
if we went narrower, I could be convinced otherwise with a lot of data.
But again, if you're comfortable with the 10 where we're at, there's no need to continue to
I'm definitely
push. It's
comfortable with
just-
the 10, but
it's up
I'm
to-
receptive to the 5.
Yeah, same here.
Same. Okay. We'll get a little more information and come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I got on those.
All right. That's all of our items we have. Let's move to administrative reports. Sean?
Nothing for me. All right. So speaking to what Gary came in to talk about, and I had brought this up, I think it was October or November, that in the course of looking at different things with our transportation master plan that we had done a warrant analysis on the intersection of 1200 North and Main Street, and found that it met 2 warrants, high pedestrian and bike use, and crash data, and then was pretty close to meeting the 8-hour volume warrant. I should have brought it in here with me, but I think it met 5 out of the 8 hours and was pretty close on the other 3 hours of analysis. And what that looks at is 300 cars an hour for 8 hours during the day, and then 200 cars an hour for those same 8 hours. I know part of the concern that was expressed at the time during a public comment at the time was that they didn't want a 4-way stop because of just peak hour at going to pick up kids and or dropping them off, and it's not. I mean, it's high volumes that, you look at it for an 8-hour, like I said, it meets 2 of the warrants, and it almost meets the volume warrant as well. And so I understand Gary's concern about four-way stops are not a fix-all. Our guidelines is consistent with the kind of general, as consistent with the general engineering community is using the warrants, looking at it through the warrants that are established through the manual on uniform traffic control devices. It is written into our traffic calming policy that is what we use when determining things like a four-way stop. So that is what we did. And that's where any single warrant and that's what the warrant means, is that any single warrant can mean that you should consider putting in a four-way stop, and where it meets 2 and almost meets a third, I am strongly recommending that we put it in. We talked about it a few months ago, and then we kind of held back because we had put in that, if you recall, we had put in the grant application through the Utah Transportation Commission, just to kind of see where it went, thinking that consistent with people's experience, other communities' experience, that typically don't get accepted the first time, and you kind of get some feedback and see what would make this a better project for the roundabout at that intersection. But actually, because of the crash data, largely because of the crash data, it was accepted, and so we are getting the funding. But it's unlikely, based off of how that grant program works, the most likely scenario is we'll have the funding to build it in 2029. So we're looking at 3 years before a roundabout is to go in. And so I talked with Darren, and I strongly recommend that we put in the four-way stop now. It meets it, and with the crash data that we do have, again, there is no guarantee, but I feel like we're more likely solving an issue than creating one, putting in a four-way stop.
And Rob, remind me,
Monitor that.
did you talk to all 4 neighbors or just to Gary so far?
So far, we've talked to, is Gary, I mean, I know Gary, so it's not like necessarily we're leaving the other 4 out. I know Gary was talking to him on occasion, and so we talked with him. We'll talk with the other 4 neighbors before it goes in. My recommendation is that we're waiting until we have the stop signs for them. They are going to be four-way, or the flashing stop signs, since it is going to be a new condition. We're also going to put up, my recommendation is putting up some A-frames with temporary signs saying there's a chain condition ahead, so that people are aware of it, and leave that up for the first few weeks, so that as people approach the four-way stop, that they hopefully have seen the sign saying, hey, pay attention, this has changed.
We do
we'll talk to them.
we do have to remove the tree on the corner.
Correct.
Obviously, we're sensitive to those. Those trees have been there for a long time. So I think the thing that what we're looking at as administration and the staff is, council, do you want to be a part of this topic any further? Or if not?
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing, I think I'm partially deaf. I'm sitting next to Corey for too long.
There you go, I know how you feel.
That's not contagious.
From what I understand you're saying is put the four-way stop in now, in the interim between now and when the money comes for the roundabout.
Roundabout, yes, and put in the
And then
roundabout.
then the four ways will be gone, because
Correct.
I'm very supportive of a roundabout rather than a four-way stop. So if that is the destination where we're headed.
Yes, that is the destination that we're headed, is that I'm anticipating that the grant, we've been approved for the grant, and the anticipation is that money will become available in 2029 to put that in. So yes.
And that would be
we will
part
do
of
that.
any communications with our community and the neighbors and so
Yep.
forth, that this is more of an interim
Correct.
step. Okay.
Yep.
And we're trying to get this in before school starts.
I was going to say,
Yes.
as long as we get it in so people are trained and
My-
they know the new traffic flow and.
We have everything. I'm not going to put it in. My recommendation, at least, is not to put it in the midst of Pioneer Days to change the traffic control there. So we'll go out.
Your A-frames or anything warning about it coming, there's going to be so many people going down that way, it'd be nice for them to see.
So I can do that. I was going to leave them off, where that's also the parade of not putting in some ugly signs while people are, well, there's better things to look at.
a lot of signs.
And so I was going to just wait until the week after to put up the, hey, this is changing, and then put the stuff in.
Are we doing a booth for like city educational stuff? Because we could also put like a big map at the park to say, hey, there's a new stop sign coming in, so it's not in the same place, but like.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's not a
we-
discussion that I've
we
had
didn't have
to
anything.
put that in.
It'd be nice to just tell people, because it's, obviously, we know there's traffic flow there.
Would you have time to put that together, Rob?
Public Works needs a booth every year. Now, we're
Yeah,
going to set
I
a
mean-
precedence.
So,
A
yeah, it's
picture
all good
with
with
a
you and kind
dot?
of see what you're doing for the rest of it, and so that we're along the same
Yeah,
line.
let's-
Just
We
a
can say
picture
same
with a
level.
dot would be
Yeah.
cool, a header and a dot.
Yeah.
More education is always going to be better on one of these, but I'm supportive of continuing. I don't need to be involved. I think this is the baby step before the big one. I'd love to have it funded sooner, and maybe it will be, but I also trust that we'll continue monitoring the data, and if we see more traffic or crashes, then we'll have another conversation, so
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
supportive, continue.
Okay. Any other feedback? Or I've got a few other ones that I have not heard any pushback on, so but just making you aware. So I also looked at, as we do, as we get feedback from citizens, we go and we do analyses. And so based off of our analysis of West 1600 North coming off from the highway, the speeds there and volumes do warrant doing something according to our traffic calming policy. And so we are proposing putting a flashing feedback sign there. So I'm thinking at the top of the hill, while they're still, instead of while they're still kind of gaining speed and then it looks like, hey, I'm doing fine, but then they just speed up after, just wait until they're to the top of the hill, put it up there when they're kind of at speed to remind them if they need to slow down. And then the other one too, that we have talked about and moving forward on is there was, I can't remember now, maybe 2 months ago, there was a kid that was, maybe it was longer ago now, but a kid that was hit while in the crosswalk at a four-way stop at 800 West and 1200 West and 800 South. And the feedback was that early in the morning and sometimes of the year that the sun is shining in your eyes and it's harder to see that four-way stop. And so it is turning, the recommendation, my recommendation is to turn the ones that are facing, the east-west ones that are facing 800 South, is to turn those into the flashing stop signs as well to bring better awareness. And so we're planning on doing that. And then you may have seen some of the other things that we've kind of done just to kind of clarify things there along Main Street is we put in some, on the two-way stops, is put in the cross traffic does not stop below the stop signs to clarify you're not at a four-way stop, you're at a two-way stop. And then painted the stop bar here on 400 North leading up to Main Street. So as we continue to do stuff too, the other thing that we've talked about doing is putting in a couple more crossings. We're waiting on, we have a grant that they've changed the administration of putting in ADA ramps at several of the intersections, and before if you make changes like putting in a crosswalk, you are supposed to make sure that it's ADA compliant. And so the feedback is that we should be releasing. They should be releasing. It's been about a year. We were hoping to do this a year ago, but that they should be hopefully releasing that money soon so that we can do that project. And then when we do that project at a couple of locations, we may be adding in more crosswalks there along Main Street.
Is that it?
That's it. Okay, Jessica.
All right, pull my list. We met Mapleton Fiber with our fiber team and other team members in there and to discuss today the 90-day Marcom strategy. So just to FYI that's rolling out. I'm very pleased with the work they've done and the experiments they're conducting there. And so excited for them to try new things. I will put in a plug for us to support their activities with video testimonials of ourselves, but also helping give them names of people in our communities from our different neighborhoods who have had positive service that they can use. So please watch out for that and be thinking about people. If you have questions, reach out to me and I'd be glad to talk about it. That should be coming after Pioneer Days. So you won't be asked to make a video in the next week or two. So watch for that.
Will there be any, public solicitation for super fans of Mapleton Fiber?
Yeah.
to recruit, okay, more broadly?
Yeah, I would say it is an omnidirectional marketing
Good.
strategy.
Good.
Our greatest challenge is we have one communications employee, so.
Is, and I gave her in January the name of a video guy. I don't know if she still has that contact, but there's some way to leverage her
You might
skills.
remind on that. I haven't
I
gotten
can
into
remind her of that, but yeah, she's,
Okay.
yep.
we didn't get into who's being solicited for
Okay.
it, so I think a reminder.
Because, I mean, yeah, she doesn't have to do all of it.
I'll remind her of that. yeah.
That'd be great.
They are looking at outsourcing it, so it'd be good to get the
Yeah.
name.
And he lives here in town. He does a lot of online stuff, so.
Sounds
yeah.
good. That'd be great, yeah. Anything to make it easier so we can expedite the process.
Right.
And skate park exploration, Logan and I have met talking about the property we've discussed. We've met with potential professional partners who have connections to resources like design and funding and standards in the USA skate community. So just a FYI, we've had that meeting, there's continued discussion, there's potential interest in public-private partnerships related to skate and golf. So we might be seeing some more opportunities related to that come in on a 12-acre parcel. And so just watch for that. Again, it's all very, very preliminary, but just a FYI, Logan and I are following up about that. The next step will be for really Logan and I and Jake to talk and start involving our citizens. We wanted to get through the business of the thing conversation and then go into what the community wants even more in detail. So watch for that. You guys will be able to give feedback on that for sure. Legislative stuff, there's a lot going on with the interim session. It's going back to a lot of things related to, it's all connected to housing, let's be honest. So impact fees continue to be a big discussion point. The audit related to those, the revised moderate income housing plan, watch for new guidelines on how to report it next year. Building inspections, who can and can't do, and do we have to accept things from engineering design or building inspections from anybody who's authorized third party, which, as you know, people can spin off and make their own third parties. So the city's level of accountability for mistakes after we've approved something, that's one that I think I'll be anxious to watch. Let's see, the speed of administrative appeals, automating transitions for bond release to builders, requiring cities to document and make formal findings when denying a property use, limits on engineering fees, accepting stamped engineering documents without city review, reducing building permit fees if a private special inspection is required, more about bonds and deeds restrictions, impact fees can't be assessed until you actually have an impact. There's that coming in. You can't ask for more, that's in the municipal code. That feels like something we've already handled. And then the modernization process of general plans and zoning and what all cities should do to modernize those. I'm anxious to learn what modernization means. I don't know. And it could be great. I'm a fan of modernization, but based on my experience, and where this is coming from, I think we can make some fair assumptions. And then there's also one that I don't necessarily have I have an interest in, but not necessarily a concern yet, on pre-approved home designs. So if someone's gonna build this one, they can just go ahead and stamp it everywhere else, and it could be city to city. If it's approved here, it can be. So that'll be interesting. Anyhow, lots and lots and lots of housing stuff. So stuff to watch for.
Fun. Okay, Melanie.
So I think we mentioned it last time that last month we met with NYCC, had a great discussion. The youth leadership led that meeting. Been working with Leslie to kind of put a plan together, and with all the results that we've got from the parent survey, the youth survey, the youth interaction and meetings. So we're going to work on that a little bit more this week. She also has some great ideas of bringing a few topics citywide to present to the youth to see if there's another project that they want to work on, like they did with the library. So I'm excited to work with her on that to see if that's something they want to. I know we talked about waiting till next year to kind of do that stuff, but I think it's a good practice to be able to start something this year and continue it like the library and get them excited. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have anything as long as Logan covers it all.
I don't have anything.
Casey.
The only update is I've met with, have had a couple of meetings with the library staff, and then Corey and I met with the state bookmobile director to learn more about just some insight under the hood, deeper understanding about the library. And as you know, we have our Mapleton Literacy Center and also the bookmobile, two different funding sources. So I'll put together a brief for the council to share in the coming probably weeks, maybe months, I don't know, that will inform the broader conversation about our facilities, I would hope. I've also started getting some of their data from their traffic and the usage, and I think that's quite insightful. So I'll share that with the council when I get that put together.
Okay, Corey.
Yep, excited about Pioneer Days, but I don't want to steal Logan's thunder because he
No, I
deserves to
wanted
be the
to
one
do it so bad.
to share the topic, so I'll just chime in a little bit. But first off, kudos to Logan. Every year, it gets just better and better as far as how smooth it goes, and knock on wood, so far so good. That it's just I really appreciate Logan and his team and their efforts. It makes for a nice week here in Mapleton. The magazines should be hitting people's homes. I have some extra that any of you want. Okay, if you pass those down, Camille. And we'll talk a little bit here on page 16 and 17. 16 and 17 shows the schedule, but I'm going to turn it over to Logan and I'll just chime in. But I will talk a little bit about Saturday evening's events as well. So go ahead, Logan.
Well, I'll echo what Corey said, just more from our team and committee. I mean, I definitely can't do it by myself. We've got a great staff, even outside of our department and down to the committee level that are doing a great job helping make sure that it goes off. One thing I wanted to mention, Gary caught me as he was walking out, and he was very perplexed that he didn't thank you as the council for the opportunity to be honored as Grand Marshal. I think he was so happy that it just slipped his mind. So he wanted to make sure that it was publicly known that he was very grateful, and it was very gracious of the city to have he and his wife as the Grand Marshal. So just want to make sure that he knew that we would bring that up for him. So then as far as Pioneer Day stuff goes, so we'll start Friday is the pickleball tournament. Friday, Saturday is our pickleball, and then into the hike on Saturday. Sunset in the Park will be on Sunday. Concerts in the Park and movie on Monday, disc golf Tuesday, Wednesdays, the car show in conjunction with the cornhole. You have a question?
About that car show.
It's awesome.
I now have an interest in car shows.
Yeah, you should be there. We got some good entries. Youngest car, like 2023. Oldest car, 1923. So we got a 100-year span.
Is the deadline passed?
I was going
No.
to say, is it?
No,
is
it's still open.
Still open for entries?
Well, I'm not working the car circuit, but I think it would be fun to put my 55 T-Bird in the Mapleton
Put it
car
in.
show.
Put it in. It's still open. I can send you the link.
I think an obligation. That might be the one and only car show I do.
All right, it'll be worth
Up
it.
to you, that's great.
Important one.
That's exactly right.
Yep. So yeah, that'll be Wednesday. Thursday, we've got Light the Bike. Friday, we've got Mapleton's Got Talent and the street dance. Also, I failed to mention, this coming Saturday is the Pioneer Festival. That is new this year. I failed to mention that. So that'll be 4 to 8 in City Park. Really, the intent of that is to really focus on our Pioneer heritage. That way, Saturday, the fun in the park, there's not kind of this weird vibe between vintage and new. We felt like the committee kind of came up with the idea of giving the Pioneer era its own time in the spotlight, which I think will be awesome. And then Saturday, we've got 5K fun run into the parade, fun in the park.
So
and then
kind of stop there. With the parade, I'll send you a text here first of next week as far as what time you need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan, why don't you talk a little bit about the
vehicles?
Vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing, the dealership did ask if there was anybody that could drive a manual. He does have some manual vehicles. I don't know if that's an interest to
How
anybody.
many are wanting?
I can make Dan do it.
I can drive mine.
Dan could drive and I'll do this.
Okay.
I didn't order ping pong balls, so it's safe this year.
So remind us in regards to vehicles, it seemed like, Leslie, you didn't need one? Is
Correct.
Leslie and Theron are the only ones that don't need one, from my understanding.
that correct still?
Is someone else driving your truck for the seniors?
Yeah, for the seniors.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I can bring them here, and Corey, you and I can work. He said he can deliver them wherever is most convenient, so
we'll text you next week and figure out kind of
You could deliver it
logistics.
to my driveway. I'm cool.
we can do that.
That would actually be easier,
That
because
might
then I
be
don't
the
have to leave a
easiest.
car somewhere.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Dan's listening in. He'll know that he's been nominated. He drove a stick his whole life. I drove it for
Okay.
like a year, so.
Yeah, is everybody okay if we just bring them to the home? Is that okay? Is it valet?
Love it.
VIP. So we're not supposed to be throwing candy from the vehicle, though, right?
Correct.
No.
Yeah, you need to be the examples.
Okay.
So you can have walkers next to it, but yeah, please do not throw them from the moving vehicle. No. Okay,
Kids will run up to the moving vehicle.
Logan, I guess one option they could is someone else could drive the vehicle for them.
for sure.
You could put the candy on your tailgate and just kind of walk them back and
You're
forth.
not
grabbing
supposed to
candy.
run up to the car to get the candy.
Correct,
either.
can't go up to the, yep.
I'm so retentive on this, you guys.
Wait a second, I can go up to the car to get a new bag of candy.
Yeah. Like I said, maybe an option is put your candy on the tailgate and just kind of walk back and
That's what
forth.
we've done in the past.
But just to your point, we don't want the kids running
Oh,
to
right,
the,
yeah.
to the vehicle if we can. It's hard. Sympathetic
right.
to your.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll move into Saturday evening. So invite you all to be there Saturday evening. We'll do the opening ceremonies. We do have some new theatrical things for this year that I think will be good. I don't want to spoil all of them, so make sure you come and you can be part of them. So that's all I'll say on that one.
Will we be humiliated in any way if we do come?
No, you will be happy. Just smile. That's what it'll be.
Okay.
Yeah, no humiliation, just lots of smiles. Just like Evelyn said at the beginning of the meeting, just takes a smile. So,
So
We do want to have the council introduced on the stage, though, at
Yes.
at some
yeah,
point, though.
we'll
Yep.
send you some information again next week on that as well, as what time to arrive there so that you can be there. Usually it's 7.
about 7 o'clock, you'll be fine. And we'll start into opening ceremonies about 7:30.
We'll get you a parking pass.
I actually
as
just
well.
got them their parking passes
Got
with their
those, sure.
shirts. Yep. So, any other questions with Pioneer Day related?
I had a couple other things, but go ahead, please.
With the concern brought up today about the blankets or the chairs and stakes, and I know this was brought up last year as well.
Yeah.
With those concerns, are we able to do anything?
Yeah, so Destiny and I met this morning, actually, to just have a follow-up. So we brought that as a discussion item a couple months ago, and the direction that we felt like we got from you was to do some more public outreach, do some more informative. So you'll see some videos coming out in the coming days that will be a little bit, some of it will be a little bit lighthearted, but also be very like, don't do this, don't be that guy. So that's
Less
kind of.
effective and more effective.
Yes, yeah, so,
Are we in them saying, if you do more than 10 by 10, we will relocate your stuff? Like, are we going that
I was
far?
just going to mention, I have experienced actually a couple times where I went to an individual and say, hey, you can't do that, and they get pretty mean. So
it is.
Told them
then-
not to put a tarp down, and they said, well, we're putting it.
Yeah, so enforcement is a difficult challenge with that. It's not as easy as it sounds.
And staffing, we
beat our
just
heads
don't have
against
the
the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the same situation, and I think you've heard some of those stories. You know, me, myself, I've done it, and I did not make a friend that night. He did not smile. So, I mean, it's definitely not fun. But, so to answer your question more directly, no, I was not planning on putting in restrictive, but mentioning it in the video.
Base,
Yes,
yeah.
don't be the guy.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Do we have a sign or two to put up as well?
We will have a very big digital sign that will say
Don't
when
be a
set up,
jerk
when set up is, but as far as like the size and stuff, I haven't had anything yet.
Let's try the be a good neighbor approach before getting overly prescriptive, but then
Right.
the
Yeah.
enforcement.
I just know a
is
lot
the
of
problem.
people come from out of town to set up, and they probably haven't, they're probably not
Seen
following
it,
our
for sure.
social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we've, after that discussion, we've met internally, and again, just as early as this morning, I do think we have a good flow on what we can do that hopefully is not to like lay the hammer down, but yet lay the hammer down to just, let's just be respectful and mindful of one another, and, you know, everybody wants to enjoy it, and so, but. So is there anything else?
Yeah, I was going to just say, again, thank you to Logan, and really excited about this upcoming week with the celebration. I know we've talked a little bit in the past in regards to our fireworks show, so we are using this year Dragon Dynamites. I appreciate Logan's efforts of working with them, and we're confident that it will provide a good show for us, and appreciate the efforts that are there. We're definitely sensitive and respectful for the years that we had, especially with Brian Trabnell and Trabnell Orthodontists, and how much they helped us. And we certainly appreciate their help. The mayor has had a number of conversations with Brian and letting him know that we thank him for that. Brian, it sounded like probably won't be there that evening. It sounded like he's going to be out of town. We'll probably take a couple of minutes just there right at the first, just to thank him for what he's done. Probably only 30 seconds, but we will also still have the helicopter drop for the ping pong balls. It'll be someone else doing that as well. So, but just wanted to let you know that we certainly have appreciated his efforts in the past in helping us with this, and we'll continue to talk to him even after this show, and maybe see if he'd be willing to come here at a council meeting one of the nights and recognize him that way as well. So again, if you have questions, feel free to call. This is gives you all the information you need as far as dates and times, so you're welcome to come over as you're able to with you and your family. So.
And I would just say those events that you, our committee, will be to, please reach out to them, tell them thank you. Again, we couldn't do it without the volunteers and the people that come and help. So obviously as staff, we're here, this is what we do professionally, but they're volunteering their time away from their families. So if you do see them, they'll usually be in a Mapleton shirt, or, you know, I'm happy to introduce any of them to you if you don't know who they are, but they're a good group, and we appreciate their efforts, so.
And NYCC as well, make sure you recognize as they are going to be out and about helping out with the event, so.
For sure. Okay, anything else Pioneer Days related? If not, we'll just let the party begin. It'll be fun.
Yeah, excited.
Here we go.
Okay, just an update on community theater. I think it was fantastic. We've had great feedback. I hope each of you were able to go. I think I saw a couple of you. I don't know who and when you went, but hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that. We ended with 1,664 tickets were sold. So I feel like for a first year, that was really good. The cast was just so excited. They felt like the energy was really good. The school was great to work with. Our community theater board and all of the people that helped put the production on, I think, all stepped up. We had our debrief last week. Definitely things to learn from, as there is with a lot of new things, but overall, we couldn't be more excited with how it went.
Remember the estimate on estimated ticket sales? Remember that night when they came, there was some estimate numbers?
Yeah, we definitely didn't hit those numbers.
What was that? I don't remember.
It was about 3,000, so we were about half.
Oh, you're half, less than half, okay.
Yeah. Looking back, hindsight, I think there's some things, at least from data exploration that we did, that maybe could have swayed that a little bit, and we could have been a little bit.
Kind of high for community theater.
Yeah, it was probably a little bit, overzealous, but again, I think from the feedback that we've been given, we did send out a survey to the community, and we're still getting some of those, feedback loops in, and we'll, obviously look forward to that. So that was great. Bike park is moving right along. They're actually pouring asphalt tomorrow on the first pump track. So that's an exciting update that, once you see asphalt down, it just changes the landscape of what it is. They will probably pour the the advanced pump next week is their plan. And so I'll be happy to share some progress photos with that. Most of the utilities have been stubbed, and our footings were poured today for the restroom. It was actually delivered on site this morning as well. So that'll start to go vertical here in the couple next coming days. And then Mapleton Heights, our little park right off the Parkway Trail, the bathroom has been erected and is up. All of the rough plumbing and electrical is in. The pad for the pavilion is up, and then they're just working on mass site grading, and then you'll see the landscaping and things coming up. So that one's moving along quite nicely as well. And then I wanted to share, Sean, would you go to the next slide, please? So this is our 30% design for Evans Park. So I wanted to bring it to you as the council. Staff, we've met internally and had some dialogue. We'll also do some public engagement pieces as we discussed with that neighborhood, but just wanted to show you as the council, we're super excited with where we're at in that process. I think it's doing a great job of capitalizing on the need, but then also leaving opportunities for that passive experience for that neighborhood. So,
Why don't you show the north and south, and then Sean, are we okay, kind of tell them what's going on with that south piece?
yeah, I don't have the rendering for the south, but there is, the church has submitted some concept plans, and so working with them to make sure alignment where their parking lots and things will line up with where our drive approach is on the west side of the park. And then also just kind of those boundary lines, making sure our landscaping, their landscaping are cohesive, so it doesn't just look like two separate projects. We work in tandem with one another.
They're proposing two churches there. So that their anticipation is they wouldn't build them at the same time. One would get built and the other one would come at a later date, so they'll be on this parcel here.
So this, we are repurposing the same design that we have for the city park bathroom. That way we don't have to spend any additional. We already have a great park bathroom that's there. So we're able to repurpose that, have a pavilion, walking trails around the perimeter of the park, and then the nice open green space, a nice landscape buffer between the homes with the landscaping with the trees, and where the playground is. So yeah, and I'm happy to send this over digitally afterwards.
Bathroom too at the city park.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it's
And
really,
just so you know, the property is zoned commercial, so we're rezoning it to open space. So it goes planning commission tomorrow night, and it'll come to council the next meeting, so
A
FYI.
few of you have asked, so with this slogan, it looks like we got 2 points of access, one to the north, one to the south.
yep.
And it's walkable from the village area, right?
Yep, yeah, the trail coming off comes up on right where the colored asphalt stops, and then we will have two man gates on the east side to have walking traffic come in that way. We are sensitive that road is a private road, and so we'll make sure that it's not enticing, so that when there are games or things that they're not lining that in, but then still respectful to that neighborhood where they don't have to go all the way up around and, come in that way, so.
Depending on what goes on that property to the west, do we have the ability to stub to that if we ever need to in the future? I see on the west side, you got a parking lot, and looks like
Good
that
idea.
entrance.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I do
Anyways,
like
just
this.
wanted to
I feel
share.
like the quantity of parking on this concept, it looks ample.
Yeah, and obviously it's a welcome surprise. We weren't planning on it, but with the church's building, there is an opportunity for overflow there for both sides, which I think is great for us, obviously, but then there's the ability for, church functions if they have a overflow as well. So I think there'll be some good things that way, so. And then we'll have as per what the agreement was with the Meyer family, we'll have the name of the Joseph James Evan Park. And then I'm working with the family to come up with some script and some things that they would like to have on that monument that will be on the back side that people can go read about their family and the history of it. And
And that'll be in the cul-de-sac, or the circle?
it'll actually just be a little bit south to it. So that other little circle that's in the concrete. Yeah, that way it's a little bit more personable, not just by a car and they drive by it. They'll be able to actually walk up and read it and see it that way, so. And like I said, I'm happy to send this digitally. Still at 30%, so we'll get some more feedback internally. Like I said, we have feedback. We'll get some public engagement, and then from there, continue the design on from there. So, okay, any questions on that? And then lastly, just wanted to touch a little bit. We've had conversations when it comes to vandalism. I do feel like we're trying our best to mitigate those things, but really just wanted, is there anything else that you as a council would like to see? I know we talked about a little bit of a return and report. I do think we have been able to capitalize a little bit, but at the same time, I think there's some external factors that are not allowing a lot of that. But it still is definitely a problem, and we're doing our best to mitigate where we can. But was there
Yeah, I've
anything
got
else
a
that you were
question.
expecting?
I do have a question, and I know that my personal preference for public exposure of those who are caught is not going to be a popular one, and so I won't advocate for that. However, I do live across from a park, and I love hearing the sounds of the park, but not at 11 o'clock at night. And it seems to be a really fun hangout for a lot of fun teenagers that are having a wonderful time. And then daylight comes and you learn often, but not always, what kind of fun they were having. And that varies. So a couple of questions would be, what is, the park curfew is at 11 o'clock.
Correct.
Is there a reasonable conversation to be had to make that earlier, 10, maybe even 10:30? I see no valid reason why anybody, particularly minor children, should be at a park after dark. Very few good things happen at that time. The other question would be, I see these pictures about, tree stumps in toilets. I've seen firsthand the stuff that happens at my park in the bathrooms. I don't know what the attraction is to just thrash on a bathroom. And I don't know if there's any way to determine what time of day that's happening, probably at night. Is there a way to lock those doors at curfew?
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that up. We've been working with a local locksmith to come up with an idea. I have also reached out to neighboring cities. I mean, the nice thing is we're not alone in this fight. I mean, it's state of Utah, it's nationwide, it's everywhere. But we have identified one that's a little bit more commercial grade that does have the ability to lock at curfew. Now, that being said, there's always ways around it. They throw a rock in the door, it's going to keep it open. But in principle, yes, that is.
Oh, like it would close automatically versus a remote, versus a, because they are
Correct, yeah,
propped
and it would
open,
just
you're right.
automatically, the strike would lock at 11 o'clock if that stays curfew, whatever that may be. So we are looking at options of those. I did budget money in this fiscal year for those upgrades. I mean, it was a little bit of a shot in the dark on what it is, but my initial estimates, they're looking at it's about $1,200 per park to do those on the bathroom, which to me is worth every penny. So we're just finalizing a couple of those details, and then yes, we will be installing those on the doors to at least lock them at curfew.
What are your insights or thoughts about moving the curfew up? The other question would be, is the cameras that we've installed in the parks, I think that's really great. Could we use more cameras? Just another question.
Yeah.
And are the cameras labeled, like, is it visible that people can see you're being watched? Smile, you're on candid camera kind of science. But
Yeah, I mean, if the funny thing is they're looking right at them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to.
Doing who knows what to the camera. Yeah, I don't
And to
care.
your point, some stuff is in the middle of the day, some stuff is at night. So it is kind of an up and down. I don't 100% know, and Corey, I don't know if you have any more insight on a curfew. I don't know if that's just a standard. That's definitely has been what it's been since I've been around, but I don't know as if that matches neighboring communities. I mean, I'd be happy to do a little
The
bit more.
logic behind, I'd be curious to know what the reasoning is, because I don't care daylight savings or not, it's dark as pitch at 11 o'clock.
For sure, yeah. I think that's something we could look into internally and come back with, maybe here's a list of what other cities have and definitely bring it back that way.
I'd be very interested to know what that is, yeah.
Have we increased patrols at night around parks too?
It's probably a good time for me to step in here.
What a segue.
Can I, while you're coming up, let me add this, and only because I live across from a park. My park, I am kind of the park police, Logan knows that on a regular basis. We don't have a light in the middle of the park. There was originally designed to have a street light closer to the pavilion playground area. And when I was HOA president, we used the bond money to put in our lights, but because it had been 10 years since that money had been bonded, we couldn't put as many lights in. So we opted not to put that light in at the playground and keep them along the street crossings and so forth. That park really is dark. I don't know how it compares to other parks, so I'll just put that out there that maybe could that be something that we could add from a safety standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I've started to get conceptual and,
Great idea.
Yeah.
We can make a wrap tax
yeah,
application.
I have been looking at getting some conceptual plans and some cost estimates for not just there, but every playground to at least just have a safety light that comes on. We do have the lights that are on in the pavilion and on the perimeter of the
Those
restroom.
stay on all night long?
Yeah, they're on a photo eye. That is if they don't bash it with a bat or something, they're supposed to stay on.
Or yeah, shoot
So,
them with a BB gun,
yeah,
which I've caught
yeah.
that one on video.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about some parks and some of the stuff going on. I've heard a few questions come out. I think I've wrote some down. I'll try and answer them, in fairness to what Logan's bringing up. So coverage, extra patrols. Our 2 new officers start on Monday, which means 2 officer coverage 24/7, which we've never had before, which allows the ability, one to go to Ira Allen, one to go to Harvest Park during these critical times, those type of things. So that's a big moment for us as a city and as a department, and what we can do proactively. Curfew hours at parks, I don't know if I've really done a lot of research, but they fall in line with state law in terms of curfew hours. So all juveniles have a curfew law to be home by 11 p.m., 15 and under, every day of the week. On the weekends, juveniles need to be in by 1 a.m. that are 16 and 17. So that's the state law curfew. Parks are public open space, and so they fall in line with that state law with curfew hours.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
We can always become more restrictive as a city, but we can't be less restrictive than the state law. So there is options there for sure. In Ira Allen, for example, we shut it down at 10:30 already. And that
Oh,
might
it does
be,
close at 10:30?
10:30 lights go off.
the lights shut
do,
off.
Yeah, and I'm sure that helps.
Which helps get the pickleball going and
Sure.
stuff like that, so. But yeah, I think you and I could talk about that with Corey and we could have a little bit more discussion on that. 2-man coverage will help. Park hours are in line with the curfew state law hours. Vandalism update, yeah, we've had a good meeting on the cameras, the capabilities of those. I think we have a follow-up meeting tentatively planned with the mayor to see just what direction we're going to go with that entirely. But they are a great tool. What we're learning on the police side, when it comes to the vandalism, I think we're honing on a group that is doing it repetitively, maybe with some outliers. So we're trying to have a conversation with these parents or whoever is involved that we're identifying, just trying to get a little bit of cooperation there too.
Is your sense that they are local kids, by and large?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, by and large. For the juvenile things, putting a tree in a toilet or the things that just, by and large, they're local kids that we're trying to educate and work with. On our side, in our system, when it comes to surrounds or park or these, the way we educate is we like to, once we make that contact and we're with them, we can log in our system, hey, this is the first time we've talked to them, or, this doesn't need a second conversation, we're addressing it now. And that's how the officers kind of gauge where they're at with every person they come across. A lot of the feedback we get from the community is, why are we putting resources into this? And then the other feedback from the community is why we're not doing more. And so we're always towing this line of, it's important to us, although we know it's important for people their kids to have some freedoms too.
Is the cost of the vandalism being widely circulated when it occurs, maybe quarterly or something? I want to err on being positive, but at some point, we also have to be realistic. It does impact everyone.
Yeah, we could probably do better on that front.
Okay. I think it's helpful.
I don't want this to be a long-term solution, but maybe while we're figuring out the locks for the bathrooms, some neighboring cities will have their officers go around at closing time and lock bathrooms manually. I'm happy to do that with 2-man coverage now, if that helps you and helps us in the meantime. And I can work with Logan on keys and making a program for that.
Is there, I'm sorry, this is clearly a topic I feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, like, what is the regularity of the bathroom vandalism, or is it pretty random? Like, I'm curious, if you started locking it now manually until something permanent is put in place, I'm curious, would we see a decline in bathroom vandalism? You think so? Okay.
I think some of it has happened in the daytime, but, you know,
Mostly at
the
night.
sun goes down, the problems happen for sure. And then, let's see, any other questions on the parks and kind of what we're maybe going to move to with that? We had a really, someone have a question? No. We had a really good meeting on trail safety. We're getting a lot of emails and talks about the trail and the safety we're going to do there. And I think we have a good plan to try and do some minimal efforts there to increase the safety of the trail. You know, such as stripings or red curbs or parking designations to free up the crosswalks where the trail crosses the roads and stuff like that. And then we have a tentative meeting scheduled for the urban deer. I've been getting hit up about that. I know the mayor's been getting hit up about that, so hopefully with the meeting we have tomorrow, we can get some direction and some updates for that too, so. And other than that, that's all I got. Unless you have any questions for me that you guys have been getting feedback on, so.
I assume you've got a game plan in place for receiving help from other cities during Pioneer Days and all that kind of stuff. Any
Yeah.
needs that you need at this point?
Yeah,
from
we
us,
have
or you-
officers from Provo to Payson come to help us.
Awesome.
And the police departments in general, just, it's such a good relationship coming and going. We just so you know, we provided, was it 4 or 5 officers to Springville for our city days and those type of things. So, yeah, we're very well supported there and grateful for the surrounding agencies for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are the guys going to be wearing cowboy hats this year?
We got some new baseball caps. So,
Are they Springville caps?
yeah, Springville caps, right?
Are shorts allowed? Because that's been a debate too, so the cowboy hat, not together. Cowboy hats and shorts is a problem.
And cowboy boots, it's all. Yeah. it'll be
New uniform, it's memorable.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chief.
Chief.
Okay, Bryce.
Nothing for me unless we want to talk to you afterwards, or we can talk on the record.
Does everybody want to just circle back later on that? What that gentleman brought up about the discrepancy in the budget amount? Or
I
guys
would
good?
defer to Bryce's preference of being on or off in this meeting.
Since it's on the record, should we respond on the record or afterwards? I say maybe let's meet. That's resolved.
But I'll meet with Bryce, and if there's some things we need to talk about, I'll let you know, so.
I think the comment of that concern is
Yeah.
resolved is a good to have on the record, so I just made that comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the discrepancy has been resolved.
Discrepancy to address it was a misunderstanding.
Okay, that's good.
Sufficient for me.
Sufficient for me too. Okay, super. I think that's everybody, right? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and all in favor?
He did.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next meeting's tentatively the August 5th.